I do.
Sorry. Over here.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna like get time to do it on your laptop. Do you want it? Oh. Is that your phone? Thank you. Or there. Steve, is this long enough for us? I think my charger is longer than yours, so
Yeah,
we
I'll
should
just move
switch.
closer.
Oh, that too. We're missing almost. Oh, there it is. And there's right. Okay.
Okay, you sent the one I see?
Oh, I'm sending it right now.
It doesn't need to be right in your head, but.
Did you edit the file to add in your comments or should I?
Mine's just raw blocks.
Yeah, okay. That's that.
See if we get the recharge.
Oh, that's it.
All right. Let me see what's there. Can someone stop me some paper?
Yeah.
I know you folks are paper pros, I think you are right there.
Only paper person?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. I'm sorry about that fold up there.
No, you're fine. Did everyone get the one?
No.
Steve sometimes go to promotional, like Steve's emails. Like in Gmail, the like promotions tab or spam is might be where it's
I'm
at.
looking at the
Yeah, I
doc
sent it
chain
to the doc chain that the
Oh,
scouting people.
right.
and it hasn't come. Did you get it,
I
Arnold?
did just get it, yeah.
Okay,
It said 1
it's
minute
fine, I
ago I
don't
got
need it. Let's go.
Grandson, you're good?
Yeah.
Contention one is the Foreign Service Trump stripped their CBR has been ping-ponging between injunctions and states inevitable hell in 25. CBL, the Foreign Service is doing a job without fear of political harassment that change, and EU banning suspended ability to decide when it's security, Hong Kong Foreign Service and state allowed unilateral change to RFC and post-political conditions until by such a court injunction we're getting the union and state appeal state again prohibited expect uncertainty and ping-pong to continue as battle of the courts. Surveys prove CBR's make or break diplomatic capacity and foreign policy effectiveness, ensuring failure to peacefully manage great power competition. They're the only way to prevent the most competent FSOs from quitting and restore credibility with foreign counterparts. Hell in 25 challenges from China, Russian aggression, counter migration, and professional cultivating relationships with central broker beats, foreign troops, confidential negotiating pieces, expanding policy, CBR breaks, hello to politics, ability to respond completely to diminished union is uniquely position of quantitative policy to reflects across the board effective diplomacy, rapidly eroding 86% said negatively affected ability to influence policy in every corner of diplomacy, new obstacles negotiating for diminished credibility, one factor considered labor reasons, clear 65% side politicization, persuaded the same emphasis of return of pre-2025 norms, the most common appeals for the reinstate CBOs and essential mechanisms for safeguarding voice, 98% rated on partisanship is very important, including CBOs ensuring a fair, transparent, previous process to meet great competition, tech disruption, performance, be undertaken in partnership with workforce, impulse following politicization, speed and ability to respond to crisis, promotes stability, restoring diplomacy requires immediate action effectiveness. The policy depends on it, especially for FSOs in the U.S. Entanglement in 25 states, going commensurate with mounting of Senate counter any experts in cyber conflict prevention, diplomacy, the sphere of components, experts who invent through by analyzing intelligent resource misleading is that did not cut FSOs overseas, locally hired staff overseas, not part against actual U.S. based workforce cuts and muscle above the difference between can function and can still function and can't. Diplomatic failure and great power competition is existential through nuclear and biological wars, both intentional and inadvertent and collective inaction on future weapons, AI, pandemics, and climate clearance. 25 great power working together on a president scale competition to escalate co-produce pandemics, cause diplomatic disputes, forecast models of 1 in 3 chance war breaks that much, larger economies, weapons, and budgets in the past AI supercharge all increasing speed and scale government's expertise needed working to have a leverage effect, making several techs safer by co-op and less likely to deploy expertise for riskiest pilots, manage crisis and ensure systems are maintained like sanctions and deterrent sanctions, increase catastrophic risk, even if no war invested fuel and risk to new weapons, war existential escalate with new bio-autonomous or future tech reducing tension, lower existential risk, China relations with Russia, Ukraine, race, risk of nuclear war relations, influence collective action over climate, the WCAI, some argue less likely to do to deterrence of organization, institutions, too optimistic, numerous close calls suggest likely less likely, but more deadly, hard-fighting. Anyone claims zero accidental war happened several times in conflict between China and Taiwan, 68% U.S. and Russia continue dangerous agreements, China and India dispute territory, other conflicts, most existential risk, India, Pakistan, likely independently, Maduro's abduction, supercharged North Korean decapitation fears, making nuclear miscalculation inevitable. Kim, 26, Maduro Kim confirms the Steve over decapitation of Pakistan under Trump signal can occur without warning response to compressed decision to allow automatic use of nukes, expanded pre-delegation of launch authority, likely matter technical movement come out, and communications glitch or not enough misread by panic command as Maduro style extraction pressure fire before confirmation becomes overwhelming. Upcoming negotiations provide the only opportunity to assuage those fears, especially since Trump will not demand complete denuclearization. Connect on 26. Trump's expressed willingness to engage with Kim, chances are high will take place. Trump before more learned objective rather than complete denuclearization, but Sir Kim's interest by mitigating perceived U.S. threats. Diplomatic incompetence will provoke nuclear crisis. Expert capacity prevents inadvertent escalation. Perez 26. Inadvertent nuclear war can be the result of miscalculation, computer error, mechanical accident, toxic mental misunderstanding, search in the stage of nuclear crisis with no future negotiations will be necessary. The competent U.S. analysts can lead to risk deterrence. Denuclearization should be the goal, though. Neither that deep war could still commit errors. Negotiations gone wrong could result in nuclear war. Informed nuclear posture should be fashioned with refined intellect and cultivated erudition and out to diplomatic prevention of avoiding a nightmare. Biological use is likely an existential steward in 18 Kim. Change calculus prepared for the strike to become an existential threat more worrisome as biological arsenal, including anthrax, smallpox, and cholera, large attacks, and Japan and the U.S. and worldwide pandemic would occur. If no release of weaponized smallpox in airports would weaken even the most robust healthcare system and destroy critical infrastructure, ensure a CBR and war is prevented at all costs. Defense doesn't apply to state development. Melon and 17 bioweapons threaten human existence and historic response for the greatest can result in extinction, irreversible collapse, civilization, remote population, genetic resistance, detection, and countermeasures for resilience and transmission trade-off to not allow a recorded instance of biotech combines such traits already a long record of state-run research applying enhanced resistance, resilience, difficulty to diagnose or treat MED, creates instead of unstable political environments to use all counter-prolif methods rely on effective U.S. diplomats, failure, risk, rapid breakout cascades, opaque virtual prolif, and preemption, and nuclear terrorism, all historically like to escalate, quell, or 25 unanimous conclusion for the spread of nuclear among friendly governments rather than accept inevitability success of animated priority, with persuasive accords and tools to counter risk we are growing because geopolitics, personal alliances, and tools to lose and clumsy several elements drawn American power co-key to resilience, first atmosphere, political control, crisis to manage and use, risk of use, co-op, values, coordinates, persuasive, dissuasive, successful, influence, executive, great power, co-op, and rivaling, third, the NDT, the global one against the U.S. personnel backs up the system, convincing others to sanction, control, check, prevent terror, decades of leadership has been essential and helped us give Iran prolif remain significant after strikes increase, believe it needs nukes to deter routine, knowledge, uranium, centrifuges, arms control, company modernization, fuel frustration among NWS tech, reduce sharp points of acquisition, easier, faster, and cheaper, 3D printing, bypass, supply chain controls, AI, reduce expertise needed, has revived fears as out cascades in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, countervailing costs and risk, nevertheless, if possible, if I seek nukes the next decade, alternatively, more seeking threshold capability, trying to leverage to deter ambiguity, exacerbate risk of miscalculation, militarized, crisis, non-proliferate, resilient, U.S. effort contributes significantly to resilience, and again, needed also serious threat from terrorists, multiple government studies concluded able to make bombs, sabotage, nuclear plant, the brand nuclear remains significant still gaps, that could exploit expansion, nuke energy, exposed to sabotage, more transit, terrorists, domestic consumers, on target nuclear facilities, acquisition by any further flow raise odds, material fault, hold on, saving high risk of use, even a small arsenal conflict, catastrophic, any prolif, render escalation more likely, forceful, rarely, if ever translate into successes, attacks on Iran, showcase limited air offs, continued strikes, will be financially, politically costly, and ill-suited to keep the MBT safeguards even one prolif would increase, being pulled into war with nukes to provoke the thing that to deter, and diplomatic failure normalizes a global shift in military prevention, which fails accelerating proliferative spills to broader preventative aggression and inverts every theoretical warrant for Detroit GN25 strikes. Spartan the threshold warrant like we're both possessed declared arsenals creates an inherently unstable escalation power where Iran cannot determine that energy at every step. Device more strikes Israel can only delay the means that guarantee determination, evolution, and norms around preventive war risk normalizing similar preventive acts by India, China, the command directional strikes. Some preventive escalation total war absence of effective external mediation capacities risk normalization sets catastrophic present unilateral taking through deterrence and by similar actions. Iran diplomatic efforts encourage others to pursue swiftly and secretly when strikes become the enforcement mechanism. Make cycles of strikes and accelerated pro far more dangerous than standards. Thus, the plan of the United States federal government to restore collective bargaining under the Foreign Service Act of 1980. Contention 2 is solvency. It restores CBRs to relevant FSOs by joining Section 3 of EO 14251. Any alternative fails to stop loss of time 125 ultra variable permits to exclude subdivision includes the entire department without foreign service inflicting measurable and irreparable harm to matches most right there. However, effects can be mitigated. There's no adequate remedy because measures in real time cannot be recreated after joining Sections 1, B, 3, and 6 of the XO would preserve the right to CV will not suffer any injury by adhering to this quote. It's both necessary and sufficient. First, performance. It's the litmus test for job security, enabling FSOs to put their mission first, and that's reverse causal consensus of experts in the century of empiric Shannon and 25 CV created stability, discipline, and enhanceability of diplomats to carry out direction every president rescind rights from enhancing ability to conduct football, water, majority protection that represent commitment, advice, misdirection, tension, better place, and advancing interest over complete sense of faithful, nonpartisan partner for over 100 years is the promise sake. Second, enforcement. FSOs only trust negotiated procedures, not rehiring incentives or already broken promises to consult or follow old merit procedures, but it's not too late. Dickelman in 29 since suggestions were solicited, but believe all cases were by insiders with no experience for the merit approach. However, the only thing that matters was where a signed contradicting testimony. There's still time to avert damage to diplomatic powers, reverse inviting employees to return, but needs to go for the shit. Return to agreed upon proposed U.S. adversaries are watching. FSLRB has a quorum and is trusted to fairly enforce because it's staffed by former FSOs been Genome 25. FSLRB decides labor disputes between foreign services, including appeals of MSGB. Members are retired FSO, former chair, retired judge, and former member. Third, resources, the confidence provided by union win rates, and lawyers are vital to perseverance in the face of demoralization and willingness to guardrail reckless policy implementation. Ruben, in 25 years, the primary tool to get to quit and retire large numbers of those who remain will be afraid to speak up in unity. Their strength if anyone is skeptical about the need to do today. AFSA has one medals that individuals cannot possibly fight. That's empirically determinative of foreign policy success, in particular, despite lower list appointees, karate, and 25 second term, and also grouping more effective choose to be explained by the configuration of the advisory system, the degree control, key determined shaping policy outcomes, interaction between leaders, bureaucracy, exposed to both to reciprocal influence. Agencies are able to exercise discretion, retain room for maneuver despite a more homogeneous and loyal cabinet Trump and Apple escape bureaucrats. It's the consensus of every study of Trump. Karate and 25 expertise, ability to exercise discretion, living in the range of opposite fear, bureaucracy against an erratic and knowledgeable president, basking on Joe Levin's systemic investigation. All empirical effort agencies able to refer direction and decision making concerning public consensus that can train Trump's foreign policy making after you got rid of the adults chaotic. No one thinks that unpredictability good theory is working after Maduro, Mueller, and 26. I got prep for the day after Maduro tested a shortage of qualified personnel. U.S. adversaries to take advantage of any hope would benefit from becoming unpredictable when dash because Trump alone less are unpredictable deals apply geopolitical concerns, priorities, perspective, naive, supposed benefits will not materialize, making the U.S. weaker and more manipulable. Studies prove diplomacy success from the autonomy of career diplomats. Lindsay in 17. With stems from the intuition that cheap talk should not have a meaningful impact, despite this historians and practitioners clearly believe that diplomacy matters nearly. It is always conducted by relatively autonomous agents. The value of this for credible communication is so sufficiently large that optimal diplomat is always biased away from the leader's preferences. Anything else for me to read? The sheer number of quitting will make effective diplomacy impossible, if not soon stop. Ruben in 25. Assuming Second Trump similar disproven needs a diplomatic expertise, experience, leadership, determined to destroy foreign service, already lost a fifth leader, RAX, and exodus, consequence of loss of capacity and effectiveness cannot be exaggerated. This one?
Yep.
Rehiring fails absent the plan. Ruben in 25. Further devastation lies ahead. Expertise cannot be reconstituted. Might have to bring back employees who left a good terms to want to return, but people move on. The number of those who might want to return be small and common to prevent further destruction. I'm good for projects.
Okay, you're good.
Yep.
Okay. The plan, does it just like undo the CBRs that were lost for the foreign service members, or does it do anything else?
We think normal means is the restoration of collective bargaining rights under the Foreign Service Act that were taken away.
Okay, then that's it. I want to go to the. So like every card on the case seems to say that Trump is the one that like is perceived in the context of diplomacy, but then secondarily diplomats do like some like lower level negotiations to assuage concerns. So like the card about Kim is like
I disagree that it's like
the card about Kim is like Trump is meeting with Kim and like has new meetings with him. What about diplomats makes those meetings effective if like Trump decides to go?
So diplomats are essential because they have years-long relationships with other diplomats from other countries. Trump and presidents come and go, but these diplomats stay in the foreign service and have the expertise and experiences with these countries that necessarily allows us to diffuse tensions, rapidly explain Trump policies in a way that avoids miscommunication, and a litany of other things that creates trust between
the Kim card you read is pretty recent and it assumed Venezuela, and the card from it says it confirmed Kim's deepest fear of a whatever, like a strike.
Mhm.
This doesn't suit Iran, where we wiped out their leaders. So like, what do diplomats do to assuage a power that's pretty similar to Iran that like we're no longer going to get rid of them?
Well, I think it's like what I said before. Sure, we have I think talks with Iran were not necessarily the same. Like, I don't know how that's relevant for talking about.
Iran, so like they would do things like tell Kim that Iran was a different situation from Kim, right? Iran, we thought they were nuclearizing. We've been in talks with
Korea
like
is
over the
nuclearizing.
JCPOA. Right? No, they
and
already
we're not
have.
asking for denuclearization.
And
So,
Trump doesn't dislike Korean nuclearization. They like did it during his first term. He
I
probably
mean, he
like
was the first president to visit North Korea. Like,
there's diplomats would explain why it's a different situation.
Okay, and then do you think the F resolves like general diplomatic failures? Like, do you think you've resolved like diplomatic failures with Iran?
I mean, we haven't read in
So
Iran.
you don't resolve diplomatic
impact.
failures with Iran, just like general people don't perceive us, like diplomacy's ineffective.
Wait, sorry.
Like,
Let me clarify. Like,
Okay.
if you read in Iran, it said like I reserve the right to like link turn it
No,
into
no,
2AC,
I
right?
get
But like
that,
the one
no,
AC hasn't
more
said that we
importantly,
solve Iran.
You've read an impact that's just like general diplomatic failures about. If you don't resolve Iran, how do you resolve general diplomatic
What?
failures? Like all of it.
Well, I mean, I don't think we've said that we don't resolve Iran. I feel like you're
Joanna,
like begging the
Joanna
question
shook-
of a link
Joanna
to it just
shook
that you
head
haven't
and
read
was like-
yet. Like,
It was like probably not, but I
Well,
reserve the
because we
right.
read internal links about specific diplomatic
No,
situations,
you
right? We
read
read
a
a
card that
specific
says
internal link about
diplomatic-
Tom. We read a specific internal link
No.
about Prolif. We read a
You read
specific
a
internal
card that
link.
says diplomatic failure and great power competition. If you can't resolve Iran, in what world do you think you resolve a Russian or Chinese nuclear crisis?
well, we have I don't know. Like, you've asked the same question like 5 times.
Yes,
now.
and
Because-
one of them you said yes, we resolve diplomatic crises, and the other one you're like, oh, we probably don't, and then you're like, oh, we solve the bigger ones but not the smaller ones. Like, how does that make sense?
Well, I don't think that I feel like the first 2 things you said are not what we said. We said we
Okay.
resolve diplomatic crises.
Sure.
That could include Iran.
Okay, then, I guess.
It's 9 off and then a advantage.
I need 4 more sheets.
Okay. Do you? Just pick 5 of them.
Grandstrom, this has happened every time we've judged us.
Yeah, let's get okay paper around. I know, I know.
Wait, I'm not.
Yeah, me neither.
It's like slowly downloading and opening.
Please don't walk around with your camera during the speeches.
Everyone's good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. First off is the Kirby team. Pro labor rolling sugar vehement backlash and institutional retaliation. Balance 21 if you live to become new powerful. Open as we get order manipulation, but it's works heavily justice for targeting the legislation introduced states into backing states wandering down the law. Salient unpublic rolling sugar court Kirby no levine. Enforcement presumption. Bridge 24 back to the majority of related parts of the push back and ruling the defense of Republican allied with which I can lead to match with the decision makers under the courts to go and push. Minority dissatisfied factions of majority and the legislator introduced bill to court targets self-scale by implementation. Domestic judicial independence is modeled on blocking global development. Create joint mechanism of oral and international relations between oral and sustainable development. Home number of like domestic
Louder.
environment, sound system enforcing property right checking abuses, enabling exchange between private parties and independent judiciary to promote justice, credible citizens, develop local horizon to invest in capital, effective and partial, cleanly administered judicial systems, vitally unenforcing consequences of reliability, feats of effective long-term project and central infrastructure, U.S. and U.S. international development are including judicial royalties, but I'm setting development caps existential risk 122. Development is an indicator of effective this underscoring for poverty benefits, reducing political risk like conflict, educating participation, institution, and quality government, navigation risk, reducing risk from pandemics, inability, poverty, spreads, to become for health, and for being poverty, resilience, pandemics, poverty costs, instability, of credit. Next off is the midterm C. Democrats win up. That's probably market 326 inserted preference. The plans perceived as an olive-branch unions across the economy. Smith 25 treatment of federal workers, Melbourne, by Trump, making that system rules admitting we're taking a federal budget, open seats, corporations, taking appropriations, feel emboldened, institution of federal workers goes. So there's workers and they see others on strike. That enables the GOP to campaign on worker-focused economic problems and beating depth to the punch and flipping key districts. Abbott 25 redistricting policies, access to good job, work, includes competition, making all view favorably working plus representation, worker-focused economic problems, work clear ahead of which party would be wise to radically lead on program economically focused workers easily take the elections. Dem House solves inequality and unchecked Trump to Jackson putting our record trouble keywords up after attacks voice one of the definitely policy by budget slash offering uncertainty that majority to the same. They can only convert for against social security and for social purposes really good for each of the realism when public is watching. Inequality causes loose nuclear, biological, and autonomous systems extinction. Cap 19. Inequality and disintegration as oligarchy, centralization, power, this causes social distrustability, capability, responding ecological, economic problems, inequality, undermining for law, privilege follows, collapse of weapons, availability, during breakdown from power, nuclear, autonomous weapons with nuclear reach, civilization, scoring velocity, anti-collapse speed, extinction of species. Next off is A-spec. Lack of agent specification is a voter key to all politics ground and mechanism counterpoint verdict next fairness. Next off is T substantial. Substantial excludes subsets. Tax court 65. The court concluded that extending extra audit from U.S. equivalent of the ability to vote being involved in the out. They don't affect all workers, but not for limited grounds. Subsets are unbounded despite court disadvantage. Net impacts outweigh workforce react to an undefensible successful in their interpretation. 0 to define generics. Next off is the deference DA. The plan breaks national security deference by setting a precedent that forcing override judgments to expressly delegate to the executive. Rule 25. FSA best the president to make decisions based on national security determination. The provision include deference and workforce meaningful review based on determination sufficient short of a process. There's no basis for reviewing a court could probably assess exclusion decision court go to second. Gets to inconsistent with the deference to the president is if you when it comes to inquiry on national security competition of bad courts in March. Spills overview the observer effect even without direct doctrinal changes. D13. Observer effect is currently about executive policies and court considering national security policy executive music consists as binding to a compliant executive interrelates the individual responses to drug policy lens so the key trigger of the court to become the national security case after extended on environment the future praise existing executive policies in the missing the trigger release leadership and executive and offer the judicial encouragement. Security deference is strong down key to versatile export control source external law lists including great power to core until $25 to challenges AI in 5G able to do with political economic ability to compete to company raising around nuclear US faces threats of Russia also foreign export control and FOSB, autonomous system, attorney, technology, broad communities, equals global China's authority, model one. Tech advantage, export control, present, seek option, AC, removal, protect, ability, expert, and estimate, because make contribution, deliver, and control, WD, disable, multi-capability, triggers, ability to regulate, infrastructure, present, seek, breadth, and discretion, inherent, the term, foreign policy, political branches, judiciary, over 12 feet of foreign policy concerns. Next off is the capitalism. Liberal law is a tool of capitalist discipline, legal protection, subsume class struggle into a framework of capital accumulation, including class consciousness. Verse 24. Liberal law capitalism promotes also much like capital make up for the whole capital goods competition workers and then to prepare to have reservation workers up to the management of economic competency for economic laws and coordination of organizations for division. Capitalism is systemically unsustainable. Exchange of the economic with the economic system will later for depleting resources to provide economic resources which at least construct totalitarian regimes. U.S. has created a number of economic sectors and systemic capitalism was actually nuclear conflict with which because the most powerful than to defend resource costs for militaries and pretty military unionism using states many militaries which have been nuclear, biochemical, and temporal actions created by capitalism. The alternative is an economic commitment to a planned economy. It's mutually exclusive. The other thing marketing capital and which is simply to maximize profits and workers. So what's capital must be marketing and French digital which advantage existing of controlling the purpose expansion of programs accumulation maybe investments either transform really music to maximize value. Next off is the OSG counterpoint. The United States federal judiciary should issue a call for the views of the Solicitor General regarding restoring collective bargaining under the Foreign Service Act of 1980. The Solicitor General should find in favor of granting a search warrant and appropriate legal change. The Supreme Court will follow the advice of the OSG, solving the case through a clear signal to harmonize this government coordination. The flame short terms of the OSG's advisory will recognize solvency through authority fighting for shopping. Let us OSG for successful litigation is trusted and respected of just method of justice. OSG argues that law means something about reduce the damage to future attorneys, age, persecutors, features, single ways, and judicial commerce, agency, chapter, the important workplace, particularly for me, different from and different types of OSG facility, one range of activities, and different competency, the government, and complex positions. Governmental fragmentation diverges crisis response agency. Purpose the community research as goal, ecosystem, and culture, also brought by pandemics of opens up practice of the government to take you, lead rights, and program emphasis, the importance of coordinated to exercise limited governance. Stakeholders establishing baseline for action coordinated approach better. Next off is CBRs. Interpretation. CBRs are employee rights to negotiate with employers. These between CBRs are completely party with employers which is out to employee. Violation. Federal workers are not employees and the federal government is not an employer. That's because they are not a business. 1918 employer is a person with a business of education commerce on federal government employee is a business which affects commerce. Vote at one ground. The AFT points every topic controversy, wages, benefits, strikes, and militant labor are unique to the private sector. Public unions are high and AFT numbers are OP to be. It's only educationally valuable with an equally split. 2 limits. Federal workers was the lid off the topic because there are too many niche agencies to track for common bargaining key themes. Case. Federal CBAs are circumvented. Federal 25. There is zero information available to you management for CBA. There's no teaching ethically. No equal income based for the industry committees and limited for that availability of bargaining. All using institutions completely ignore the union expanded control and money receive nothing return to actually dismiss. The lack of understanding general offices expectation of research to prosecute court action 100,000 employees non police positions the police really tactic by you is absolutely will not be successful. Trump is not attacking the foreign service. He's making it leaner and efficient. Currently 25% of the coordinated plan for the this agenda that the burden by particular future partnership with the straight devolution over this was getting the official and with the foreign service only for the office for portrait job like because the whole issue with this over much adequate. More time forward publicly inefficient work on wrong YouTube will not help the layoff for a web page for people to contact change in the state where recommendation for local environments and work for months. The DOS is structurally doomed. Zeta 20 US will do credits deficit and having individual positions under administration environment of the contingencies of officers all around Allen mentally structured bids and the reforms proposal reflecting the direction of the security promising and maximum for black future rounds authorizing legislation leading budgetary pressures all cause unfilled ambassadorships. Go 25 years to the credit limits to the unfilled primary which integration making absent particularly hospitals just administration administration which that American power vacancies. The significant compensation between the U.S. can be filled by 85 vacancies. There's only legitimate foundation U.S. That's one. U.S. diplomacy feels and non-existent systematically. Larson for 22 years was under diplomacy after decades of undertaking neglect of political will, the angry hostility, compromises, critical policy makers, and managed diplomatic often pull back in military. Every administration plays over all fields of opportunity, diplomatic, to build trends, political, just one prevent tapping a message. States military to create and negotiate steps, to achieve various performance of this diplomacy. No Trump foreign policy impacts. Angels about Trump. I know he's represented with automatic pretty Facebook action meeting record and Russian fact about one of the every receding Trump's particularly children for China American Canada for Trump. We do not know if that could be in Trump respect of peace. Trump will become radically change policy. Trump's foreign policy is rational and calculated. Pro-Basque 24 Sunday Trump participating in Ukraine, US and native president what did he have needed from NATO some level state abilities and Iranian president capability. I pay reports I Trump official is good to be for the alliance and native permanent policy to bring Europe and getting content Moscow. Amazing over to one Pacific for the administration to really take the name sector for the for common allies against China which are no peace. No chance the absolute Korean decapitation fears their cards are reversed causal. Even the most smooth talking diplomat wouldn't reassure him if he fears existential danger. No new U.S. no-go talks. 26. Kim signaled open review obsession with energy democratization after the vertical quality they continue to reiterate continue to the message of both the second of what is going to even if unresolved regional crises president compound impact of and Trump recognize that Greece entry national value and move after them no denuclearization and other superficial trouble if you delay the responsibility to deliver. Maduro and Iran instilled caution making confrontation less likely. I see they were diplomacy upward collection of reporting structure additional culture challenges the allies beyond towards a dialogue with no pressure I can lose an opportunity integration of international workers the leader have no good maneuver with you make held eating it's avoiding confrontation no North Korean war worry Kim should have for every division of the thing is over and for the Korean so there's not going to the war where you never unilaterally at least whenever it's been from the force of US so even overall security professional nuclear force not solve Kim's problems no great power effect by the market you can advantage aging instrument and really can use together to kind of be overdetermined market overdetermined I'm good
okay. Status
the status quo is a logical option
is deference and that benefit to OSG.
I don't think so.
No.
Okay. And neither is obviously not Kirby. I want to talk about OSG competes on what?
It doesn't mandate the plan. It most likely does not require force of law.
You skipped Cook, yeah. The
Code.
Cook decision.
Cook.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yes
Sorry.
So it competes why?
Force of law.
it has the OSG bring the plan up to the Supreme Court, but it never mandates that the Supreme Court accepts the ruling. We only have read evidence that says they are likely to do so, which means it basically
Why did they say yes?
competes on every word, like should, collective.
I understand. Why did they say yes?
Our evidence says that the OSG is effectively the 10th justice. They tend to listen and incorporate their rulings, and says if the OSG took a more proactive role, that it has sufficient political capital to make recommendations that will be adopted by the Supreme Court.
I want to talk about the deference, DA. What do you think is your spillover argument?
The observer effect. Lower courts perceive the plan as weakening national security deference, which means they'll be hesitant to apply it in future cases, generating a body of case law overriding the national security deference and weakening it in cases
Right, but like the lower courts routinely don't.
No, the Supreme, they listen to the Supreme Court. That's like government 101.
Do they?
The Deeks evidence says that in the context of national security deference, they're looking to the Supreme Court, and that if the Supreme Court is even perceived
This
as
card is from
questioning the
2013. It doesn't
lower
even assume
courts
the
would use
current
that as an
Supreme
opportunity.
Court.
It says that they view Supreme Court case law and national security deference as binding.
Maybe
and
the
will interpret
federal and
exceptions
Supreme
as
Court
applying in
justices
future
of 2013, but why does why does it spill over?
I don't
in
think
less
you're
time?
giving enough credit to this evidence. It's actually pretty clear that if the Supreme Court was weakening the national security deference, the lower courts would observe that and follow on.
Okay, 13 years ago maybe.
Also, independently of lower courts, the Supreme Court follows its own precedent.
Okay, sure. The cap K, what will you defend as alt solvency? Does it abolish government, corporations?
It transitions to a centrally planned economy, so it doesn't abolish corporations, but those corporations would be publicly owned and managed. So it abolishes the employer-employee relationships because everything is now worker-owned and controlled, rather than having an employer.
Like are foreign service officers still employed by the government? Does the government function as we currently know it to function?
They're not employed, but the government does function. It abolishes the employment relationship because that requires a capitalist hierarchy that the alternative gets rid of.
Okay, so what does the foreign service look like in the world of the alternative?
Well, it looks similarly to how it does now, but it importantly does not have collective bargaining rights, and they're not employed, but they do work for it.
Okay, so any reason why collective bargaining rights are good answers you all.
No, well, we can also make reasons why the
Okay,
alternative
yeah,
would solve
sure.
those.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll do that.
We'll put that.
Okay, you happy with that?
Yeah, you go, go, go.
9:40.
You ready?
Yes, it is being sent out right now. The order in the meantime, while I'm attaching the document, it's going to be case, then T substantial, then T no federal workers, then A spec, then the Office of Solicitor General counterclaim, then the CAPK, then the deference dissent, then the midterms dissent, then the curving dissent.
So it's TTA spec.
Yep, OSG, Office of Solicitor General, the CAPK, the deference DA, the midterms DA, the court curving DA. Sorry, this is like really uncomfortable to speak from.
Just ignore this. That's what it
Move on to the second.
is. It does. So, like, yeah, like that.
What is gonna help?
I'm trying.
Okay, are we ready? Michigan?
What's that?
Sorry? The paper?
Yeah. Oh, all right, fine. I thought it was yours. Never mind. I'm sorry.
Oh, I mean it is, but I don't need it. Just for a moment. Okay. 1NC1 was a solvency evidence. It's about the civil service, not the foreign service. That matters because we read a card that they have their own adjudication board, which is empirically effective. Interesting. 1NC2 was a reorganization good turn. It's wrong. 1NC Dickelman is explicitly answering Cronin. We agree that structural reorganization was good, but it's not responsive to the fact that stripping FSOs caused FSOs to panic, which means that they're not doing their job effectively. The sheer numbers couldn't make effective diplomacy impossible, which is the 1NC proven evidence. Next argument was the US is doomed. It's not true. This evidence just says that Trump is hurting them. Obviously, that is the uniqueness for the 1NC. Next argument was ambassadors. It's irrelevant to our impact, which is about the staff's competence. That's Kim Mitchell, Linderman, and 25 replace the other such diplomacy continues political messages also be backed up by expedition career DCMs. Next argument was diplomacy fails. Saying it usually fails begs the question of whether or not military strikes are more effective, but they are less effective, so it's try or die. But they're wrong. All of our evidence prices in the risk of failure. But since it's worth the effort, studies prove Lindsay and 70 steps to institution introduction out of meaningful impact to this historians and practitioners conclude that diplomacy matters nearly always connected by relevant about other stages. No, Steve already read that card. The next argument was the Ansel Trump foreign policy defense. It's wrong. Trump's unpredictability causes wars, not prevents them. Transactional diplomacy causes assurance breakdown, which emboldens adversaries. That's Mueller also sending in drones F-35 in the Navy to the SES, or decapitating Iran disproves the true borns. Next was Trump foreign policy good. We read a Trump good 1AC, but expert capacity is what enables it to be effective, which is Heller and Fonesca, but it is not good, which is the Mueller evidence. No line by line is wrong. The app solves decapitation. Kim and echo. And say that meeting would serve Kim's interest and mitigate threat perception. We have Ev and they don't. The evidence is wrong. It says if they wanted to talk, then why haven't they? Because of no diplomat, which was the 1AC. The ST evidence is wrong. It's purely speculative. But our site's internal documents also doesn't assume accidents. Yes, no co-war. Their evidence doesn't assume bioweapons or decapitation fears. Great power competition. Concede this impact defense. They dropped the 1AC no-co bioweapons and the prolo scenario. Neither of those require great power to go to extinction because proliferation causes dyads and preemptive strikes, which immediately cause extinction, but they have zeroed the impact to the deference set, which they explicitly tagged as great power competition. Lastly, the T. Counterinterp means no. Counterinterp no. Article means yes. Subsets. That's Mater Havens evident deficit. The article showing the complex quantification variability. So one superior relay reverse consider requesting next existential quantification of relationship by locative session. Prefer one grammar precision is a matter of fact and turns everything else. Second, after mixed out of enterprise industry or region or worse. Third, mixes burns whether or not every worker depends on their choice to join a union. Four, no offense view advocates can't be econ aligned in states plus links are about effects reasonably fast. Convene terms cause race to the bottom end. The crowd out substance. Their tax scorecard is defining substantially all, so I don't need a counterterp of that word because they haven't actually defined a word in the rest. The other T. We need federal government and employer, Department of Labor, and Nathan Nations laws to support the federal government, and so federal workers are employees. CFR 25 employees, individuals subject to USC 17 employees. The state measure agency plan text is the only objective standard, counterintuitive, the correct law. Define CVRs and employees that's turn in. Try to have a for the FCA, also employees and members of the Foreign Service covers only forces the security threats of the agency. B. That's best. One, predictability prefer. The amicus brief from the court case about the plan to their arbitrary application of the wrong law because case is about the NLRA and backup. It's about OSHA, second ground. There's plenty, including from the private sector links. And have the community reads it because the NLRA is unwinnable. A-spec. No counterinterpretation. Say the U.S. use normal means, and be as specific as the resolution. It's best. Act ground. Else inflates agent and process counterplans will steal the app. Over specification hurts an egg. Cross insolvency advocates check, and it's not a voter. We can just specify later. OSG. Perms, 1, do both. Second, do the counterplan. 3, do the plan as follow-on. It doesn't add time frame because the counterplan also includes delay. Should as the future Brennan. The workshop phrase be determined face to be considered possible events. 4, do the plan and request OSG's opinion. It's also because it have benefits about the not about the app. 5, do the counterplan but find OSG in favor of the plan. 6, do the counterplan. And the plan, no matter what, doesn't solve court will strike down Anderson and try to the course the order remove lines to social court executive power. The UNT completely attack power running commercial limitations. Of course, this is unconstitutional refreshments. OSG credibility is 0 with SCOTUS workers and the general profession with 0s. Then I benefit Venticle. Any try to solution master portion short of gas and organization, usually high turnover and hires more women in the past position more in the tradition about ownership and organization serve out irons, charge better compiles the office, especially after the core fire language, and I delegate to the board to be straight to some war Trump began to worry judge retired judges will call by the court by the quote the president's writer compared to the court than SU. The office political section of the president, civil service distrust wreck solvency, even if they win follow on CBSGs are common or opposite 2000 terms the Supreme Court SCSGs wreck broader trends define the relationship. One shot of the counterplan is not enough, but Barber is about multilateral responses to global challenges, which the OSG can't solve. Capkit. Framework. The ballot is a referendum on the plan's desirability, links must be causal and unique with a solvent and competitive alternative. Anything else unpredictably moves to 1AC, which estimates procedural finish in the clash. Perm do both if that severance to the plan in non-mutually exclusive parts of the alternative growth is sustainable. Abbott. In 25 workers, the user population growth will reach year reductions have multiple different something 5 years into this in future growth forecast from data modeling by innovation. If you run a resources, we continue growth substitution, production, and adaptive research ability to store growth and capacity for official users to find inputs firm and choose sensitive my cost to market. And the questions one is illness, your exponential population will zero new product new substitution, these products, predictions, if they use product giving substitute probably kind of potential growth reaches to channel linear hospital in this time. They will require curves on your way to be contributions to produce the resolution, curve substitution, accident short and MSAGI as rated, causes fight lines growth, rise budget to adjust its risk, transition causes bounce back, capital flight, and populism, which causes nuclear smelter and 22 transformation of British groups also capital and passive movements, probably reversal by states, the country with capital flight, and armed conflict, crisis strength and red and reinforced growth, very capitalist, and the logical law and order new right. These populations, the breeding resentment, changing advantage of economies further. Hiring so Gerber thinks the alt links just as much to sustainability, which is the recutting. The alternative fails. That Linden 25 ounces of 3 transition focusing on violence with ethics, one revolutionary face, problems, packages, interventions, military, I guess the opposite of possible capitalist life was another path revolution is opportunities more possible and midterm public order raise more conservative policies because the emphasis of common redistribution self by other people's Americans about finding countries of South natural gas values on right, under security competition in the U.S. and because safety provisions goals made contributions to progress grows rival international work government, imperialism, authorities, capitalism, tendencies, believe institutions for people's side of the philosophies. The immediate problem, the deference to said, Trump will inevitably win some and lose some. The plan would just be a carve out that's went ahead in trying to find any countries like for the Fed with the start currencies not followed any other like use on other uses like power really shops control from problems which elections if report has the title the deserves unprecedented power on by Congress if they're right about what the court's going to do in every other national security case. It solves the link and spillover, but they're wrong. SCOTUS is not going to endorse the maximal national security exemption. Dvorak and the most like evidence to only to from the distribution like the Roberts will endorse mark that endorse the plan is a technical holding on a narrow tailoring. It does not constrain Trump's power broadly. That's her. The Trump function says they do not follow the definition of security by the court even if some work cases not mean a primary function only for state only for a state subdivision that can statute record we can also hold the rule section 3 plaintiff's card which voids their links. Michaels and 16 admin SOP Kevin 3 carve outs UTC authority to take your national security as a law class to reclassify substitutions of security. That will the rules of the game about one group match not the one marginalizing million reward and the zone for CC high contestable security aid responsible for rather than the constitution not the the president government. Consider all your water was object actions to provide to the resident of my injuries and the constitution no sufficient distant course. The police outcomes no spillover Hickman. Try to do a court decision regarding SB nations in your availability between the mentally funny corporate substance like plus rather reduction of consideration something one of the business to come to rather than mind event and functionally please no one with debate solutions most vocally. The midterms they said the impact is empirically denied by the past 2 years. Course don't length and 70 after Mr. Wilson introduces that people living reality more same as politicians who education proposed by the issue of plan case solves terminal impact because diplomacy diffuses crisis, especially because the plan is in the circuit now, so they would just deny cert other anti-Trump court rulings. And people disprove the link GOP win now, Michigan 20 in 6 weeks long election referendum. The president was one known none other outcome of the state of the recent market economy focus decisively elections of normal significant structure strength yielding dividends and structural market organized well in companies that services even emotion. Things businesses are brand new and undecided. What results is no link. A court ruling over executive action wouldn't get pinned on Republicans, but under the radar, Neil. In 20 big civil socials, good idea. And I'm going to probably choose racial that drive voters to the board. Structural barriers ensure the plan makes no difference. Daily, the entire beginning from election of their short of power, their messaging will make a difference. The story of power special for the demand after court gerrymander, but all representing the basic move until against them much later worse until them to address the structural barriers even ever assemble majority in coalition will only get worse. Mark that worse black swan stomp, but the plan is a Trump loss for Trump because it strikes down the day one XO and Trump will break the midterm by stealing voting machines or passing the Save Act. Their inequality impact doesn't say anything. It just says decisions will determine if we have a middle class, but it's not by well for all causes. And inequality is probably inevitable. The curbing just had no circumvention. We get dirt enforcement. Otherwise, the yes always lose to should not would. They'll never occur. Bolton in 25 Republican sessions warning will be done in rival opposing energy from the court of the constitutional wars. The judiciary will descend to the more question of the judiciary not on Trump's or send the Republicans beating to public court. Until the process of moving any justice advantage, not never to the that form retaliation judges will go. Anyone that working jobs not to upon the according with the court any current needs for the post, especially from the plan's magnitude. It's a few workers at most. No link. Trump's actions are blatantly illegal. Congress won't perceive it that way either because they already want to do the plan, but there are plenty of checks on the executive now, like Humphreys and birth relationship. He's getting stomped in district court. That nonsense. They're trying to Trump getting crushed in the court, 96% of district court ruling court, taking case against side laws, ruling against Trump's and some factors about Trump trying to actually launch that is their power model history and one of the freedom to cross naturally for the ruling over what Trump can do usually legal. No surprise that the courts aren't funding. There's no impact to development of how one of the legislation measurement line coaches use policy on the rule much more worse than the standard picture of the president of any INC. We're still seeking triggers ag, and then sectors of no strategy involving country border rich development concentrated China, Latin America, South Asia, Middle East, and Africa, Spain, for determine trajectory, mark the edge trajectory, condos bad because triggers are good, it punches bad, one sees from worse by two aces. The counter-temper system when these sperms or theory equals K.
Are you good? The Moynihan evidence is about cases incorporating Article 2 powers for the president to fire people from agencies, not national security. What do you think is the implication?
Well, no, the card literally says, quote, other issues of executive power.
Well,
so it's
why
making a broad
why
point.
do those matter for export controls?
Well, I suppose we have a bit of a problem with spillover to export controls on other parts of the flow. But yeah, I mean, you're right. This card does not say export
that
controls.
connects the plan to export controls.
Yeah, and the
question
22 red
is,
evidence that does it.
what connects like the Fed Board of Governors to export controls, given that's not a national security issue?
Well, Trump is citing national security in a bunch of cases for a bunch of reasons.
Not in the like Cook case that is cited.
Okay, to the degree that your spillover, as you explained to Stephen in 1 and T cross-sects, is about how lower courts perceive what the Supreme Court is doing. We think that these cases send a signal to those lower courts.
Evidence. It's about whether the court will embrace unitary executive theory. That's a different doctrine from national security.
Again, you explained to Stephen that the internal link was about how lower courts perceive the Supreme Court to be ruling. These cards are thumbers to that.
Why do they need to adopt unitary executive theory to uphold export controls?
Why? Well, unitary executive theory would permit the executive to do whatever on earth the executive wants.
We've said
That's like the
national
whole point
security
of the
deference is allowing them to uphold export controls now. Why does it matter if they adopt this unrelated other doctrine?
Because you explained to Stephen that the internal link is about what lower courts perceive the Supreme Court to be doing. These are thumpers to the Supreme Court is expanding executive. That's what you explained to him.
Why do you think unitary executive theory is necessary for them to?
It would be a massive expansion of executive power. Your dissent is executive power good. If we expand it in a bunch of other ways, that probably solves some of the spillover perception.
But you said
internal
they're not adopting unitary executive theory.
Right, which means they're probably constraining the president in a bunch of other ways.
Okay. The Hearn evidence says that the FSA is not a national security agency. You've said they're the backstop on war with North Korea, China,
Okay,
Russia.
there's a massive distinction between the way that we discuss security in a context of debate where we read like big silly impacts and the way that like literally an amicus brief for the court case that is actually handling the plan's dispute understands the legal term of art national security. Like yes, the one you read impacts about war and stuff, but that isn't the same as like
from
national
that
security.
Say that Trump's XO was bad for national security. Like
yeah, you read cards from some lawyers and we read cards. So yeah, there's a court case. We're reading cards from the defense and you're reading cards from the plaintiff. Like or the other way around. We're reading the plaintiff and you're reading the defense. Like we both have lawyers. Hearn is literally like the director of he's the deputy general counsel at the American Foreign Service Association.
Evidence makes two arguments. One is like the part that you've cut. Second is that the ruling is ultra vires because it uses the national security exemption to strike down all of it. You've said that they will rule on technical grounds. Why won't they just take the like second route that Hearn says?
The second route is link defense because it means that the court could rule on this is not a question of national security. This is a question of whether or not Trump was overbroad when exempting for national security.
The second still means
No, that's link defense, not a link. want me to slide it to you?
Let me try to open a file.
No. No. Yeah, that. Which is kind of repetitive with what I've just scripted to you, so maybe like just grab the first paragraph or like tweak it a little.
You read.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
607. It's not. Well, the other is T subsets. Okay. I applied the wrong one. It's T subsets, the cap K, T no CDR, OSG, and then the case.
T no CBR, then what?
The cap K.
No, you said substantial, then the cap K, then the second T.
Wait, sorry, now I replied to the wrong email. Give me 2 seconds to send the correct email, and then I'll repeat order. Okay. It's on. Okay. It's T subsets, and then the cap K, and then the T no fed.
The what?
T no fed. TCBR.
The other two.
And then the OSG counterplan, then the curving DA, and the case.
Oh, great.
Okay, I still don't have the document.
Yes.
Oh, I just don't.
The OSG counterplan, and then what?
The curbing gets
Curving DA,
And then the case.
Steve, do you have that?
Nope.
No, I just got that.
Panel good.
As specific, all limits workers with the tax code of spending for limits around the exclusive topic. It is singular agency or sectors like the EP, aviation, and data processing is by substance within substance individual programs or even companies that skews prep and rumors use like politics and econ predicated all the sweeping changes planned. We mean and planning vacuum is wrong. They specified foreign civil service workers anything exposed limits encourage plan Vegas. Tacking on anything without resolution language is forces impossible tuners. 19 substance post factory purification and nucleus. If I give fairness and collection anything else that's sector topic which disproves the resolution and is impossible. Now
Counter-interpretation. The first piece of offense is grammar / predictability. It is irrelevant because it controls the resolution and will define other words a little later below. But our card also defines substantially, even if it modifies a different phrasing. The word substantially in that context still means all attacks were deciding set of case law. And then order meaning, which is better than there's other words for strength. But so if you have strength, living only the answer they're just fully workers. I only term working means all that school standard grammar. And then 14. I look concept principle of collective bargaining. It means there are words of support in makers for being through it. Limits outweigh predictability is a threshold. Ours is good enough. But that solves case and extreme impact turns proof valid shape preparation used to sacrifice some grammar predictability for a more limited and better topic that has ground. Unpredictability is inevitable. And conflicting preferences, research divergence, and language disparities, and unlimited topic forecloses. And then research half-grounded over limiting is nothing. They get secondary strikes, broad-based or sectoral bargaining, any modification to LOB enforcement, and any mechanistic change that affects every single worker concede their offense from Fed workers. The Fed workers have as a deficit to states and over OP generics, which is sufficient to defense their offense advantage to solve making inequality, econ democracy, technically depth over breadth, keeping content protection, and empirically verified by nukes and healthcare picks also can't be offense for them because small exclusions are negligible, which is the one that's tax code evidence, but they're good. They require topic research and are plan specific. They're after resist deficits check. They get singularly monopolies and circumvention that were straight to the net benefit, or they can omit substantial probability. Judges will correct via theory or artificially inflate deficits. They need one worker, all worker keyword, and they probably wouldn't be no mixes burdens. They specified no functional limit, allowing subsets removes them. Good for one cases can't be factored. And then if people in the end they cause generic instability, reasonability they are not, which was done above. It's arbitrary cause of judge intervention. The sum of all total reasonable interp is an anger. Community interp scales are reasonable be the best practice. Not the cap K framework. The NEG can win by disproving the economic theory or proposing a better alternative. They can weigh the plan in economic theory underpinning it, solving offense through additive when conditions prefer. Fletcher and 23 major character learning policy theory. What is also situation for example you buy anything person. Legitimate proving part of this one approach, but also been realizing for person we know. After being physical impossible to be the challenge. Most scholarship would consider possibility. Those right shape reality and constrain all solvency. Albert and 24. All I do the future practical relative relation to the receiver and the future bringing economic active distance active winning. And regimen the future winning active strategy. No clash or fairness offense. One is linked to ask it the planet economic theory is more limiting. They're worse and encourages word picks and process complements and nuisance tier agreements. Infinite prior questions is shared by only 4 economics and more than 25 work work market makes it traditional. Second is reciprocity, fiating attitude and durability. Is more unfair and we should get to test it. Should requires a defense of the one policy. It doesn't have to policy, which should mean a policy advocate committed theory necessary after just policy. And the TQ means word resolutional and failure to counter define means the neg on jurisdiction. Third is defense. Fairness is an internal, only permanent impact of scholarship. If not, it's a level self-correcting. Then structural disparity stuff. Neg flex outweighs. It's the only functional limit. Uniqueness is shot. And Trump makes this quote indefensible. They chose the one you see get infinite. Let's speak off. Now, do both and do non-mutually exclusive both fail. One is framework. Links are D's and separate philosophy. Second, this mutually exclusive. The all bans all collective bargaining, including the plan is incurred. Third is severance. Yeah, it makes it happen moving target and seals negative. You should. Scalar 20. Be sure express obligation or duty. CBARs require markets. Estimated CCP. Respond to market allows decentral CB. Respond to the rate. Central C. And same regulation. They all introduces a third party negotiation emissions of decentral planning and different planning and determination wages. That's not CB or CC. The TCC and 13 CB perform agency. Nor does it do it for workers, which derives its status from capital and enterprise, which is the one in C. Bresnik evidence that prefer non-market participants that bargaining links and blow the lid off the topic. Interplay strength of course that affect more. And 3, according to the strengthening reason, include the words and logic dictate that severs by weakening collective bargaining. Prefer net decrease opens the floodgates. The infinite unpredictable absent advantages incentivizes small changes. And the theory checks their offense. Carve outs fail. Do both and non-mutually exclusive deficits apply. It can't solve. One is infringement. Inclusion contravenes the all. And it tries to blend markets with democratic control, which is impossible and can never happen. Which is the Yodo evidence. Second is corruption. Yodo to an market as one market. The capital will govern. Perm successor source the all constitutive and dominating close economy social market social advocates for the social and market relation ideologies and social market system of virtue. We're not 16 markets and social opposed. A threat. Next argument is lastly, they dropped the one in C links so they can't go from permutation. The one in C attempt to reconcile the competing interests of capital workers guarantees extinction by facilitating capitalist restructuring. The reason that people support collective bargaining is because its flexible nature enables them to be marginal cosmetic changes while protecting their general structure and ensuring their continual reproduction in neoliberalism, which is the Bresnik evidence. Now, CAP is not sustainable. They dropped every reason that the one in C said and just read a card. At 1, planetary boundless, endless profit, privatizes the environment, triggering systemic collapse like biodiversity loss, resource shortage, and then the climate, which is Durber. Second is militarism. It drives excessive military spending and resource wars that cause nuclear, biochemical, and several which is Durbans, all are existential independently. Their card is wrong. Regulated capital and innovation, possible context 25. Regulated capital and work international commerce and realistic drive not to intervention for the budget squeeze of resource corporation remain powerful. You say for guarantee profit also for company economy. Also, your finances and policy open interest ruling reform capital resource profit. No reform can institute force reform being better. But any innovation that they say would solve extinction is backwards. Upwards, but for advancing AI, set to 5 3 IT over power. Your industry expenditure to take into environment universities cyber ancestral IT which network become a dangerous to use network vulnerability hypersonic space within literature becoming accessible at 30 penny making not see natural including conversion techniques software cyber risk after teaching just dramatically. The next argument is transition. transition causes balance by capitalist populace. It's about degrowth. I'm not going to answer it when they re-articulate it. I give new answers. The alternative itself is a planned economy that gives worker control and meets all of their requirements via social needs through rational central planning and decentralized fee mechanisms that fulfill the role of labor in systems like the plan solving the case, which is the neo evidence. Derber thing links that alt is wrong. Debate is communicative. Didn't read it. Strike it. No inserting your highlighting. And then for me, highlighting is a straw man. It's citing a different author. Last argument they read is that it fails because of diplomacy. That is wrong. Transition is model go. For example, the use of the immigration collective holders, all of organized splashes of funding, to help from markets. The people that most likely we have to do the alternative with are also all socialists or have worker controls in their economy, so they perceive it. No bet. They drop that you should air neg on impact calculus for theoretical arguments because there's no the substantive DA. Every DA is unique to shot audibly in the 1 and C. They don't get new answers and applies to both T and conduct. Oshki, perm, kick it, not gonna go for it. Kirby. Condo is good. Being what we did. One is blocks you. After changing the choice, you requires multiple options. They encourage same back which undermines clash and turns you. Second is neg flex. The neg is always reaction afterwards. And if we're test the intrinsicness of unpredictable advantages add on to deficits, reasonability also applies to this page, but not our T interpretation because their offense explodes our ability to respond by too much. Third is arbitrariness. No differences separating models. No risk basis for theory. An unpredictable rule is worse than one which always shifts and ruins neg predictability. Four is logic finding the best policy option. Districting advocacies does not make the plan good. Punishment paradigms are worse. And 5 innovation risk aversion made fallbacks. For safety testing and experimentation, skewing research are inevitable by ideas and procedures. Dispo is ad hoc condoms guidance after is too powerful. And sometimes this process of causes the research balance. Now, the case of Kronig, even if responded to by 1 and C evidence, they did not answer the 1 and C warrant, which is that even absent CBRs, the people that they got rid of were DEI hires that made the government more efficient and saved resources, which balances out the bad effects. Trump FOPO good is a swing and a miss. I'm going to concede the Tweety quote of sending drones, F-35s, and the Navy to the SCS and Korea. Diplomacy does not stop military deployments, and they said those themselves were destabilizing. Now, the DOS itself fails. They characterized by talent flight because of ineffective incentives and groupthink make agency missions impossible. Lack of authority authorizing legislation ensures budget failures, which is that Air Negro card says that is endemic to the DOS. CPR's key is a total whip. And it lacks flexibility. Policies, even when state lack capacity to respond to crisis or alongside force of planning, the present military communication structure organization capacity states lacks flexible. There's no impact to diplomacy. One is all causes. The U.S. is rapidly losing credibility and leverage. Then a third of ambassadorships are already unfilled. That zero is impacting uniqueness because there are already systemic dysfunctions that transcend administration, which is Gilbert. Second is they're toothless. There's a lack of political will to negotiate, and the U.S. will always fall back on military action, which means that things like preemptive action are the status quo, at worst positive effects of bureaucrats are swallowed by politicians. The sabotaging process is the one to see Larson evidence. None of their evidence also assumes Iran, which definitively broke our backs of diplomacy, which will litigate out in cross-six. If they cannot resolve Iran, they can't resolve any form of this, and they have no evidence. Assuming it. There's no impact on North Korea. One, talks are zero. There's gaping holes between rhetoric and what's actually carrying out. There's unresolved friction and an impasse that prevents both sides from cooperating, even with effective foreign service. Second is no impact. No-go capacity has significant technical and logistical challenges, and the U.S. and South Korea are already spearheading efforts to get rid of their efforts, and there's no war. We're in 24. Kim Sifter after all over defeats Kim sending missiles to Russia, plan to find out Vincent Kim after whenever the other unleashing the recent negotiation coming forces. So overwhelming severe convention nuclear war, but not so Kim throwing negotiations failed when foreign service workers had CBR, so it's an and then January 25th, something 2019, during your line, your plan resolved engage in all the United States meeting will take place in relations and most pressing matters. Their record is outdated. It's from 2018 and proves diplomacy doesn't overcome, which is their 1 and C Stewart evidence and the case is backwards. Bennett in 21, returning the bureau and that thought I announced to US object to require diplomacy beyond it. The reach of conventional weapons, mark the card at conventional weapons. The Great Power War add-on Fetwise says that SWO solves Great Power War because of different factors, but it doesn't assume the DA, which gets rid of our democratic and which export controls interact with things like democracy and econ, which Fetwise says are checks that exist now. But the DA would get rid of no go violence upon Twitter capability, no go violence with the technology effective anti or the effective and there's a responsibility going to be software and the US ability to respond to basic realists with there's any good political and countermeasures. There are no impact below those codes. Let's go 25. I push against all of them over pretty below. And then okay, this will cross all as a member entity must have attribute monitoring my face and institutional constraints only competence periods and P progress and P progress nuclear facility and CCC large stock price. Lastly, no preventative war. The card is highlighted and says Iran and Israel come on, obviously thumped by this quote. Yeah.
Let's start on T subsets to clarify. There's one topical class, and it is the entire private sector plus the entire public sector. Yeah. So all Fed workers, all state and local.
No.
What? You said workers are all.
Mechanisms exist.
Sure. But I mean, F has to cover the entire Fed workers, the entire state and local governments, and all the private sector. So when you were like, you could read Fed workers, that's not true.
You could give the right to strike to all workers.
What about workers that already have it? Like half of the F would be non-inherent.
The U.S. does not have a right to strike.
Okay.
And there's definitely not a right to secondary strike.
Okay. Whatever. The CAPK. The sustainability argument, regulated capitalism is impossible. The alt solves this how?
Because it would foment social needs via workers being at the front of the alternative.
Okay.
The
What do those
concepts-
social programs look like?
So
We're talking like a UBI,
the one
like-
NC Nieto evidence says that the needs that originally would come from capital payment would be distributed
examples
via
though? Like, what are the
so like
programs?
communes, for example. The thesis of the 1AC is that workers have an incentive. They love being diplomats, and
I
they
want
love being part of
examples
the
of what
civil
social
service.
programs
And
the alt
so
includes.
They
You
could
haven't given me
give
one.
food. There's housing benefits. Like there's
Okay,
a litany
food,
of things that
housing.
communes do. Like the way a commune is set up
Great.
is that we have all the resources. It's just
How does
we're
that solve
democratically distributed.
environmental unsustainability? You shifted to communes, but the profit motive exists.
Well-
You said you probably don't delete corporations in 1NC cross X, but you've read an unsustainability argument about resource extraction.
Well, yeah, but we've said that resource extraction happens because of because economies don't forefront social needs such as workers, and
What?
workers have an
Wait,
incentive.
wait.
to fulfill social
Why?
needs.
Giving people food and housing solves resource extraction? Why?
The alternative with fiat all across, the government and corporations that workers are at the forefront.
And that solves resource extraction. Why?
Because we've said that workers and socialism and democratic planned economies have an incentive to be more environmentally friendly.
Why?
Because social needs, like
What?
our alternative fiat's this.
Come on,
We
dude.
fiated
We fiat what? That the environment is all happy and dandy?
The
Like,
one-
come on.
the-
I'm asking
I
you
mean,
basic
The
questions
one
about.
NC functionally fiated socialism and says that would scale down
Yeah,
the
but-
economy.
Okay, and then I recut the alt card to say when the line where it says socialism wouldn't
Well, we
actually
did it.
solve
No,
the
no.
environment.
The recutting of Derber is citing like an author from 1980 and then like a Mondia article. It is not what Derber says.
Okay, great. The second sustainability argument was militarism. What does giving people food and housing do to stop the U.S. military?
Well, military spending was the one from the 1NC.
So
and
you take all the money away from the military and give it to food and housing. Is that fiated by the alternative?
Yeah, we said worker control.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you defund the whole military and you put it all to people's food and housing and like public transportation and like buses and shit.
I mean, I don't think you can say militarism's good after reading this 1AC.
Yeah, I'm just a little concerned about how the alt solves. Okay, the innovation argument is backwards. What is the alt's relationship to innovation?
Well, Albert is in the context of capitalist FIR innovations and says that the way that capitalists innovate now, again, ignores social needs, and so things like cyber, IoT.
Yeah, okay, but the alt
could
fiat
be
social
good.
needs, so we can prove that.
Well, no, we have like other reasons you don't get the power. We have,
Well,
like,
yeah, no, I'm aware of that. Okay.
One, I need you so. Yes.
The order is the case, the midterms DA, the curbing DA, and then the national security defense DA.
Hold your horses. Case,
Midterms,
terms. Okay. Curbing deficits.
well, lost the midterms flow. Okay, case, midterms, curbing. Have I got that?
And then national security defense.
And deference.
Yep.
Okay.
Are you all good?
Yes.
My word is like crashing.
Oh yeah, Steve's not.
It's okay.
Well, what you should kind of would rather you have the one in Arno.
I can see it in the Google Doc or the Google preview.
We got like 10 minutes of tech time. Yeah, I feel like
We can wait for you.
for my sake, can you wait until the one in Arno opens? For my peace of mind.
Sorry.
Take your time.
Yeah, no,
Oh, he will.
a little closer.
Did you read any of the breakfast tacos this morning?
Two.
What were your thoughts? Are you like into breakfast
I thought it was
tacos?
a little too much egg.
Yeah, that was my.
That was my first foray into a breakfast taco.
Ever?
Ever.
You have lived a sheltered life.
Very. I did not like it at all.
Yeah, it was great.
I don't know if I just got like a mid breakfast taco or if they're like not for me. Why are you so blown away that I've never had a breakfast taco? I mean, I basically eat the same breakfast every day. It's like a piece of toast and a coffee.
You got it, Steven?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you actually?
No.
All right.
Okay, sure. Let's just go.
Okay.
No preventative war makes automation. We did not face preventative war seeking cases residue evidence for preventative war to cover it, but it's 90% to the 16 cases specifically not the process is started by theories. Market theories. Go to the mention D. Concede that it's the court, so there's no link. And you get through some wrongs. There's also no impact. Carnegie concede that they would never curb and no development impact. So no offense. Go to the national security deference D. Export controls outweigh magnitude. Acquire restricted tech support charges. Militaries in Russia, China, Iran, and Korea causing a race to AGI hypersonics and nuclear breakouts that detonate into nuclear war. Time frame planes would immediately challenge export controls, volume forces down litigation, triggering dual use tech before implementation, leading the race solves AI downsides by empowering social actors, minimizing test by hazardous places. The thing is, whenever everyone A to be the project of building make answers to make it more vulnerable to access to military states, disasters, development, and paradoxically, enhancing the refusion of the which minimizing infrastructure and risk in inherent in expenditure key. AI safety lapses cause extinction, leadership is key. Director 24. Risk of AI safety, individual estimate their length of powerful tech, we can actually look at the pathogen built-in ego looks AI being orderly integrated delegation to AI leading catastrophic enables tower. Cyber tech findings of the nuclear misfires represent future catastrophic and more busy info make evidences of false narratives exactly for this ritual fully intended but exactly like the AI can be there. So much of the weapon is message being separate which is able to get you to over the catastrophic AI tool design for therapeutic molecules promotes 40,000 chemical and safety knowledge of their companies operators. What this will do is AGOs will be Tommy and abuse with power looking for the addition of nuclear energy capable base for launching a great catastrophic ways after attack to see and were amidst delicious and automation by for the tendency. The individual systems will learn automated decision chip control solve super rough communication extinction. And there's really very important to the law of the systems expediting programs of virology and the new preventative and severe factory or immune defense new agents for medical and economic efforts to democratize automation control. This will include your person integrating prevents a dissemination of expert and control for actors communities and critical AI. No great power defense does not apply. It assumes the status quo, not a world Chinese tech dominance, and it does not say China emerging tech will dictate the future military balance, causing a force strike. Least with the ability to prevent effective including future tech and struggling for different forms of weapons. Yeah, I want to make it possible to be faster than winter technology by the general release of shit. Unless they're unable to ensure survival and emerging and making their quantity of the independently to be treated to be the bottom of the nuclear strike. It should also economize to exploit tech advantages and destabilizing ways. One is to introduce hypersonic swaps and authoritarianism. We had an internal link card at the 1NT and said that they cause extinction. The link turns the case. Overturning deference means agencies won't be able to defend their policies in court when it matters the most, short-circuiting the influence experts and new nuclear weapons acquisition turns both Chinese advancements through neighbors and sending nuclear acquisition. Now, they say the plan is just one carve out. This is about Article 2 cases and Humphrey's executive. Both are unrelated to the national security deference. Doctrine deference is adequate now in the area of national security. Specifically, the court yield to the executive judgment about national security matters when the statute delegated determination from the Hawaii proves that's Roth and Antelope. I'm not reading new deference high cards because the Tweezy didn't read a single card that says that they're low. They read it about unrelated doctrines. So the one here shouldn't get one. Hold the line. They say other federal workers cases solved. They have zero card for this, but the plan blows a hole in national security deference. Foreign service bargaining statutes explicitly delegate the determination what counts as national security work to the executive. Ruling against the president requires the court to scrutinize Trump's determination, then decide for themselves that it was illegitimate. That breaks the dam because the court's reasoning would logically apply to all national security determination. That's Roth inquiry. Conflicts with Jackson's precedent up officially valid assertion of authority. Roth 25. Executive acts officially valid general presumptive regulatory question for executive and recommended to president of the national legal judicial authority to motivate representation for the working of another way to avoid authority or national security federal labor management relations with the executive ensures identity and the reason reason and bound the exercise discretion or assess it. This is a quintessential example of the unreviewable decision. Schumann 25 as 7103 entrusted their president order determination which is discretion market and which is power discretion must be exercised in determination of the review more searchable inquiry because the different over the president measuring possibility is not required to conclusively link the pieces. They say won't embrace national security. This part is about the Supreme Court embrace of unitary executive theory, which is a totally different legal theory. RDA is about national security deference, which the court already recognizes. So this is literally a joke. They say the plan is technical. This concedes the DOS quote implicates national security, but national security is not the quote primary function. That is our link. The president must be able to invoke even tangential national security deference cases to uphold export controls. Their evidence also concedes national security was cited inserted 1AC and 1AC. Hello, the US is a national security agency. Roger Ferguson should show of state of our national security primary US information is to protect security primary functions of privacy armed non-hold borders and serves inextricably intertwined with national security. They say avoids like spillover is certain one observer effect. Judicial scrutiny on one case creates a chilling effect that makes executive risk across other domains without future role. That seeks executive will preemptively roll back boundary pushing policy to avoid audience costs and additional restraining precedent seeks. The same reason they continue to be producing a president executive this executive order reputation costs by having certain reduce the terminations with avoid litigation for reducing by restraining precedent and liquid litigants unavailable points similar even in unrelated cases. 2. time and energy trade-off. The exerting of observed by the president of spend time on litigation, liquid appraisal, liquid executive, and difficulties in the person need to understand the constitution to advocate the influence chiefly give limited time over to the general report pursuit over additional complicated form litigation means some of the topics. 3. Jurisprudence. The legal justification for the plan is logically mandated for export controls. If courts can second guess the exemption, they'll have to scrutinize export restrictions and both rely on delegating core national security and judgment to the president. Distinguishing the plan is stealth reversal, which keeps the precedent not only on the books but functionally strips it of legal precedent. There's one way to pursue rule that we read under president and the nation of all the digital providing as does not fully rule over extended first agreements and reconciliates intellectually possible for opportunity to yourself or resolution. President not only time for the word of already force logically made but rational bird events leaves president not only time but word or unable to let the name rule and events of our events lower credit and recognize a significant different path from existing law. Doctrine was built on Israel, Zoltan 20. To his interpretation to ensure to the pastors from market federal forces led to another mitigate and once introduced these federal local to follow this Supreme Court immigration interpretive principle. It is unlikely even if the Supreme Court announced the local federal would see courts eminently which is the place of judicial hierarchy. 4. Impact is linear. Even if the plan doesn't overturn deference, merely narrowing it risks some dual use chips slip through the cracks, which is a huge impact. They say no spillover. There's evidence. It's not about national security deference, but incrementalism is relevant. Emerson 24 had been over the non-determination is a feature not about the external challenges not likely seeking models of innovation to fully different power not static robots in our determined role in diminution of authority. Losing a national security deference case on the merit is especially likely to achieve decision making. Takes such future traditional listing observe effect large when they take lose a treasury case on the merit that can executive decision figure out possibility. Market possibility.
9:40. Yeah.
We could kind of low key read straight down. Don't literally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to check. Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead. Watch one. I'm gonna send it and then run to the bathroom. Okay, second.
We go to Vegas or anything silly?
What happened?
Oh, Steve sent it and went to the restroom. But it's inside.
You see?
When we were at the CSC K-Day, round 2, we were in neg against UTD, we broke a new half about Cass.
About what?
Cass.
Sure.
And then round 3, we were at against GMU.
Sorry, round 2 there was no plan.
There's no plan.
No plan.
And then round 3, we were at against GMU. And they went for cupcake competition, cards as T and set down.
Say more about that.
The webinar was like 2 minutes.
Like,
This webinar was like jurisdictionally, we said CVRs and
Yeah, you'd
workers.
be like, you know all the things we say?
Mm.
They were
Familiar.
like, they're like perm, you said perm, so F not T, and set down.
Yeah. Good stuff.
That's our connected.
a little teaser.
Well, there you go.
We also had 3K debates. We debated Georgia CK, graph was about transness. We debated when we were F against Wake. They went for the thing that they called a liberal democracy impact turn, but I would describe as not that. And then we were neg against Iowa AP, which I think is our like 7th time being neg against in this year.
Debated it once.
Yeah, we've debated them so much. They might be outside of Georgetown LW on the nukes topic. I think they're the team that I debated the most ever. What's fun?
Good record against Georgetown LW.
Well, I think in the end it was 3-2, which is pretty good for being a little sophomore on the INFA. But Zanao and I like hashed it out. We actually believe that 4 of those debates were judged wrong. But when you correct for it, it's still 3-2. It's just the 2 that they won. We all agree that we won, and 2 of the 3 that we won, they think they won.
Our record against John and I's record against LW is like that.
Yeah.
John and I were convinced we beat them like 5 times. We were like 1 and 4.
I love debating them though. They were the only team in the country that basically never went for T against INF.
Fools.
Yeah, maybe they could have gotten me there. But it was basically like the only time where I was actually going to be allowed to have debate about missiles, which was nice.
We beat LW as sophomores and then never beat them again.
Yeah, that was quite the rivalry. But since then, I don't think I've debated anyone as many times since. We've only been neg though, so we've been through like 7 iterations of all the strands in this case.
I'm really upset that we've never had a breakfast taco before.
I think you'd be really upset to know about a lot of the things that I have and have not ever eaten.
That's very Midwestern.
Yeah. I'm a very boring eater. I don't know if you've ever been privy to this information, but I don't really do sauce.
Oh, that's not.
There's a few that I'm okay with, but probably could count on one hand.
So I'm about to have some dog ass food at East Lansing next week.
No. I think I cook actually pretty well. And like you can add like there will be a sauce that you could add to it, but I want,
We went shopping to get snacks for like MSU, and we had like two buckets of snacks, right? There was chips and just popcorn, things like that. and for Greece we got 2 cucumbers, a bag of carrots, and
The
like
big, the
1
big ones,
potato.
not like little baby, like yeah, good stuff.
You're a little, I didn't like Nick Crenshaw. You're a little too for the.
Well, at the
There's
NDT
a
last
lot
year,
of
Branson was
vegetables.
judging us, and at the NDT last year he was judging us. The D time was over, and the debate was over. It was third D time. Unzips backpack, pulls out full like completely natural, straight out of the earth, unpeeled carrot, and it's just like, let's judge.
Like I vibe with this next choice. Okay, we good?
Yes.
Order is the case, T, the deference DA, the captain.
Make sure my phone doesn't answer that.
Okay, I'm good. Nuclear polar cosmic extinction advances in cyberspace capabilities mean new nuclear powers accelerate fears of nuclear attacks and spark preemptive wars, making the world a global tinderbox for cascades and which trigger past miscalculation. Yes, getting rid of people might be good, but they jumped and it scared all of the actually effective FSOs, which triggers our impacts of the Dickman. DOS fails now is after uniqueness funding is irrelevant, and we're winning specific internal links to Prolove, and we're not going for no codes irrelevant. They never answer the Prolove impact, even if they answer preventative war. It's 100% extinction. Aquila says 35 countries are actively seeking nukes now, and they cause erratic use and lose pressures. The trigger extinction and it happens fast because neighbors can't let the others develop, and there's literally zero net impact to prefer Queller. He's worked at Prolove research his whole life and writes anti-Prolove policy now. T subsets, the T subsets versus the F. It's like using a cannon to kill a fly. You might not love this when you see, but T subsets is not the corrective. Extend the counter term. No article before workers means it includes subsets, which is made of time. Subsets are bad. Destroys F ground. No F truly means because F have to include random stuff like the public and private sector. Econ 1, SB or secondary strikes become steel over prep 2. Unbeatable picks. Every app is works is a peg there. Easier to cut, and you only need to need 2 cards in every industry once we accept left and next. That's the term of the debates. 3, it's arbitrary. None of their courts say what they claim. They say all of them have modifiers or context that clarify all, which always limits because it ensures competitive equity and limits alone justify counter term. Only our app theory is a leap of faith. It doesn't check. It doesn't teach about the topic. Deficits aren't built to answer 99 versus 100% risk. The neck over corrupts them. The things like announcement picks and picks good isn't responsive. They still get them. But versus the teams that choose to link to other contexts. Defense, they need one strategy against a single agency app. They've already got precedent dissets like press power and process dissets. Like politics would equally apply and like politics would equally apply to history. Teams always narrow down people with carbon tax subsets and NFU subsets instead of catastrophic strength. The definition is wrong. CBR strength is a scale-based measure of legal discretion. John 24 an index of the strength of CBR agreement. Dealt with the scale-based measure comes legal strength more comprehensively than alternatives. Which bargaining is prohibited, permitted, but not require employees to change discretion to take unilateral decision or duty without dispute resolution with arbitration or increasing general practice. The treatise continues in definition is wrong. Colon 52 English within obviously not throughout workers. LAO does not mean the plan must apply to every worker, not only that every person is employed as a worker, which is their LAO evidence. Legislative history proves that ILO in 81 amendment partial exclusion of categories of workers. No objective was race, which was adopted. Now the deference DA. The plan is a ruling about Trump's XO being too broad. He exempted all FSOs together. The plan's court case would just say that Trump's allowed to exempt on national security, but the way that he did it was too broad. That means because he did all agencies at once instead of one at a time, and specifically in Taylor, which is her and their DA, is about the DOJ. Is the DOJ complaining about our union lawsuits and saying that you're going to hurt national security? But the plan just says he can do it one by one, not all at once. The DA assumes that the plan holds the president lacks authority to act. We did not read an act about congressional supremacy nor UET. With that shield, the plan's holding that. The plan's holding can be that Trump's action was overbroad and not all FSLs reform security work, which means even if they're at security missions, that's the Michael's evidence. Now the case solves the impact, even if we lose lead in tech. Diplomats manage to fall out and encourage restraints, decades of tariffs and export control stuff. And there's only a risk that red power defense does apply. Their internal link is about countries developing, about major countries developing hypersonics and military technology. And they said that those would, and they said there's checks now that don't cause war, which means all of our offense outweighs. Now there's no internal link to the Pethukas evidence. They have not explained it as a question of precedent, but the observer effect, which puts the threshold for thumpers on the floor. Their says the exact self-restraint to the court limits anyone's power. This court is not specific to national security. Now they see the court about Article Article 2. That was all the work I did above about why it doesn't link now. They say DAs about national security efforts. What do you know that the U.S. does national security is not the same as the plan as a ruling that limits Trump's national security inserting to irrelevant. The next line says Trump couldn't cite actual effects on national security, which is what the plan's grounds would be, and the one that didn't answer any more than her. The card saw on spillover. Don't assume the current core. They're 13 years old. There's no internal link. They have not explained it as a question of spillover, which was above framing issues and none of their internal link evidence specific to national security were thought was. So leverage about UAT and Article 2 of the top zero in. There's no distinguished solvency argument. They would not say it's about CVRs, not national security. Deeks is not about national security, which triggers every thumper, and the link alone cannot turn the case. Prolif is a structural process that requires diplomatic intervention, which means simply having export controls is not necessarily resolved. And they cannot. We've only read an impact about FSA, so other agencies are relevant. There's no spillover. The court has never endorsed the next understanding of their internal links. Every court is a scholar's opinion about how UAT should be applied. Every relevant case from the Roberts courts just proves assertions that words like the best and take care requires automatic or sweeping outcomes, and it's mostly irrelevant. Okay. The ballot to referendum on the plan's decidability, anything else text procedural fairness and clash, which makes generating office impossible. Only 4 systems is bullshit. Each has countless variations. Even Wikipedia has dozens which we've inserted. Should definitions ask as policy or theory, it concludes our framework board should mean that policy is advocated desirable policy, or it means desirable enough, not mandatory. AC 99 shall. The term mandatory should as we might not be satisfied by desirable repetitive reality. They're misrepresenting Albert, who's Albert in 24. We need more than anything. How we expand full cognitive emotional power. Determine what is within our power. How to create the least bad future of revolution or revolution or bust. Now, the CD definition is also it just proves bargaining over wages is not intrinsic, which takes out the third-party planners to determine wages warrant none of their cards. Evidence mutual exclusivity, just say could, may, and seem capitalist because they're in a market economy, but adding them to the alt makes them work differently, which means the purview both solves felt. And 48 planning economy CD will have few points of resemblance as we know it today. Now the links are relevant. Every card, well, they're cards about the private sector, which is why we didn't answer it. But the sustainability argument in the Twin Cities is a swing and a miss. Growth sustainable and efforts to slow down our existential population growth declines ensure wider resource availability, which eliminates extraction incentives, which solves both planetary boundaries and militarism. Even if we run out of specific resources, income growth will stay strong through substitutions. Air aft warning limits us to exponential population growth coupled with zero limited growth and productivity, and no resource substitution are as such the most comprehensive and recent data on the question, which is have it. The Twin Cities does not assume our sustainability warrant, which was never about innovation. So every card they read is entirely irrelevant. Now the alternative can't solve the foreign service. CDR uniquely key, which the all abolishes, and we read 7-0 cards on this question in the block. Green light, prolif, and preventative wars that cause extinction which was the case. Now they say capitalist restructuring CVRs are flexible. They read a link about the private sector, so we obviously didn't answer it because it was not about the plan. So there's not really an internal link. Now I'll extend permutation, do both here. It solves if they fiat away basically every reason why the world is bad now, because the prospects in the 2NC was completely embarrassing.
Yeah, let's 6 something.
607 is what I wrote down.
Okay. It's the DA, the captain, and the case. Can I just scan this?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The DA, the captain, and then the case. Panel 3. Okay. Okay. It's quite literally classic try or die for expert controls. Recent events and past numbers should make you doubtful about the 186 conflicts and proliferous but absent exit controls. The world would ignite. Unrestricted tech is the straw that breaks the camel's back for Russia, China, Iran, and Korea, which strengthens the entirety of the case, increases arms racing to Asia, hypersonics, and prolifes. Smith says specifically would cause drone swarms in Taiwan to make World War III a certain event. Second, it makes AI safety impossible. Paducah says that absent the U.S. as an AI frontier causes risky development. And then straight turns all existential risks scenarios, including terror, bio, cyber, and nuclear war development, causes AI eco clubs and loose AI, which makes diplomacy toothless, and allows WD diffusion, including nuclear weapons, making the case impact inevitable. Second, automation risk escalation. Between great powers drop the justification for turns case absent deference. The U.S. can enforce policies when they matter the most, which is national security, under future rational administrations, or even the Trump good part, which will implicate the entirety of the case. Now, no link is a total swing and a miss. The plan hollows national security deference. Foreign service bargaining delegates determinations of national security. Where did the executive framing issue? They read a card from the plaintiff saying it's not a security issue. Trump said it was for the court to rule, but the plaintiff, they would have to reject the president's determination that what is and is not a national security issue. That is our link argument. The court's reasoning would logically apply to all national security determinations, and it would have to be up for the courts rather than the president. The plan is a ruling about Trump's exo being too broad. This is misleading since plaintiffs are arguing that they are overly broad applications. The national security deference now, leaving the determination to the courts rather than the president, contravenes decades of precedent, deferring to the president, in fact, facially valid assertions. The national security, which is Roth and Schumate, they say one by one. Durable fiat means they have to reinstate them all, or else the plan gets rolled back and circumvented. Since most FSAs will still get killed, which will also litigate out in 1AC Crossix and Trump determining. Not all of them have national security functions. The
claim requires overturning that exact determination. MSU should be embarrassed that the one here did not get a single card, that our dog will murder. There's all of this explanation lacks any evidence that is MSU in 26. Now, the case cannot solve. This will be later, obviously, but one, it's new. Strike it. Second, export controls are key to tech norm diffusion and economic constraints, which diplomats have nothing to do with, and it can't solve AI safety, which is purely X controls causing norms in the U.S. tech league. Concede decades of export control stump. The logic of this is our argument because the export controls have existed for decades, but the plan would make them toothless. Drop our re-raise to no war now. The checks now are because the checks now are implicated by all export controls because it implicates things like democracy, trade, and econ, so it does not apply to the case. And AI makes nuclear wars unworkable. Now, not about national security is wrong. Drop 1AC heard that however highlighting both conceded the DOS and Trump's orders were about national security. The DOC obviously is a national security agency, which is the 1AC and 2AC Ross evidence, not specific. There's a joke. Every net card is about national security deference. UET and Article 2 thumbers do not apply. It's illegal illiteracy. Whether the court adopts UET is irrelevant. National security deference is sufficient to uphold export controls because a broad deference to the president. Article 2 also doesn't thumb Trump having constitutional authority. The fire federal government workers again is unrelated to whether the court defers to national security logics. The threshold for thumper is a card citing a case where the court narrowed national security deference, but that doesn't exist, and MSU certainly doesn't have one. Yes, spillover framing issue only BFF that's specific to national security. One, observer effect. Judicial scrutiny deters chills the executive from invoking a national security in future cases. To avoid narrowing the doctrine, the executive will provide to avoid pushing the boundary to dodge additional restraints the president, which is Deeks. Deeks is about national security. Quote, observer effect describes the impact on executive policy setting. The court considerations of national security policy. It does not get better than that. Second, jurisprudence. The plan sets a precedent. Courts are allowed to second guess the exemption. They'll apply that process in future cases, forcing them to scrutinize expert controls which regards. This constitutes stealth reversal. That functionally strips national security deference of its power to make presidential determinations to scrutiny. That's the Hosey evidence. It perlicates through lower courts who defer the SCOTUS, which is those old ones. Third, they drop. Even if it doesn't spill over, it still triggers the link, which is a headshot. It's not enough for export controls to merely exist. They need to be versatile and flexible to avoid being bogged down forever in litigation. Lastly, other cases don't thumb. The court only has to overrule the executive once for this logic to apply. In future instances, since they never question national security logics now, no incrementalism. It's mischaracterized by SCOTUS. They follow particularly on national security, which is the Emerson evidence. Look, it would be embarrassing for you to vote alpha no link when they don't have a single card disputing our link story. And then have a bunch of explaining why overturning the president's determination in this instance lets the court question future cases. The no link and no terms case argument a little later ago was answered above. Now, the cap can concede perm, not going to go for it, but terminals to this were extinction, and AI safety solves all of them. The case should start at the fucking floor. The bar for foreign service officers solving an existential problem is laughable. You should preserve export controls to moderate international relations, not diplomats. There are a few things that they dropped that zero disadvantage before impacting. One, efficiency. Cronin says that Trump's reforms were beneficial efficiency gains, and credibility gains were good because they got rid of useless workers. But the core diplomats like China, Russia, Iran, and allies were all safe. Second, the separation. The Tweety said military deployment stump, which they can't solve. The gap between Trump and diplomats and allies is too far and too great to matter. Three, the DOS fails. The one here blew this off, but really, funding doesn't matter for an agency. It's laughable. Every less dollar, there's less for workers and hiring. The lack of funding causes talent flight, and drop diplomats are susceptible to groupthink, which they didn't say. Drop Paul. It says that, quote, even though the, quote, robust State Department lacks capacity to respond, which also doesn't get better than that. And says personnel are flexible, can't persuade, and have no capacity. Four, drop general diplomacy fails from Wendy Gilbert, and the U.S. is already losing credibility. The robust chunks of ambassadorships are empty and, quote, systemic dysfunction that transcend administrations, and drop that politicians sabotage the process, which is the largest evidence. Now, pro-lift defense. Remember, this impact might perceptually seem big, but there are few things that matter. First, export controls massively control it. Second, no war now means that great powers don't get drawn into Milo pro-lift. Third, no preventative war, which means that, which is what they started with. McDonald says is a professor of poli-sci that says no cases resonate with theory. Lastly, Steve needs to learn how to flow. The Twinsie Red Lenoska indicts experts that says that, quote, they overpredict allies because our allies are member of the NPT. There's monitoring domestic and international opposition. There's technological constraints. There's no ability for them to launch them. They don't have nuclear stockpiles. There's no funding for them. Nobody has scientific expertise. Each step of that layers and mitigates the impact because in order to launch a nuclear war via pro, you have to cap all of it or get to all of those.
520. That's it. Yeah. Oh, gotcha.
Case. Cap. Okay. So, just said.
Did you say Cap K?
Yes, I did. ESCO, but have never answered pro-live only preventative wars. They've never read a card for nobody gets the bomb or no cascade. So you know that it is a textbook try or die ballot. Countries are going to get the bomb in the status quo, and when they do, it kills us all with 100% certainty. Even if you have a little bit of doubt as to whether or not they could proliferate, you know that if they do, it is 100% extinction without a doubt, because the Twitter evidence is not actually just says it is hard to get the bomb, but not that it will never happen, or that if it would, we would all die. The courts could uphold their deference precedent in future cases. The U.S. could reestablish export controls under a different law, or we could use diplomacy to de-escalate the AI race. So you should live to fight another day. Now, the rule of impact property causes extinction advances in cyber and space capabilities mean new nuclear powers accelerate fears of nuclear attacks and spark preemptive wars, which makes the world a global tinderbox for escalation. New nuclear states accelerate the risk of cascades because of dyadic competition, which creates use or lose pressures because countries know that they have to escalate before their neighbor gets the bomb. Proliferation is uncontainable without effective diplomacy. It creates unprecedented tensions and instability that require quick diplomatic solutions. Europe, Asia, and the Middle East are jam-packed with latent nuclear powers and insecure nuclear states. If you escalation as the only option that draws in great powers and escalates to full nuclear conflict, or causes extinction without great powers because now these other countries have nuclear weapons and are in an all-out nuclear war against them. You should refer the consensus of practitioners and the analysis of regional dyadic relationships that conceded the product of Quaylar, so you should take it as gospel over the Lenoska evidence, and none of their defense assumes current geopolitical tensions, which are ahistorically likely to escalate now. At the top, the Croning evidence is wrong. They've never answered our spin on it, even if they got rid of useless jobs and scared the entire foreign service, which means that the good ones aren't doing their job properly. Second was the military advancement slumping. Doesn't answer pro-live. Third was the argument that they don't have money and groupthink. Again, this is uniqueness for the affirmative. They never answered the spin that the reason that the U.S. is failing now is because the workers don't have collective bargaining rights, so they cannot do things like lobby to get more money. Next was diplomacy fails. This is wrong. One, the one I see red evidence about studies, their evidence is a snapshot, so you should always err affirmative because ours describe long-term trends. Second, the 2AC's first argument was that the alternative to diplomacy is just letting people proliferate or having to first strike them to stop it, which is obviously worse, so you know that we control try or die. Third, they dropped the 2AC ambassador's evidence, which is that it's no big deal because episodes will fill in. Next was the proliferation. The first argument was that it said transit. It'll be over there. Second argument was that there's no great power drawn. This is only impact defense to the dish set. The 2AC conceded it, and the Twitter said no words on they read defense to their own dissent. It says that peace is guaranteed between big powers like the US and China because we're too intertwined and there's too much to lose. This does not apply to small countries proliferating though because they're not part of the giant web that Fido Weiss is discussing. Second, the third argument the Twitter made was no preventative war. This is not our impact. It's about actual proliferation causing extinction because they get the bomb and countries go to war with each other. The lesson was the Lenoska evidence. First, I'm not actually sure that the Twin C read it, but even then it's wrong. First, MPC is answered by the Yan evidence. Adversaries don't care about it and they're willing to defend themselves. Given the new capabilities, the tech barriers are solved by new AI and advances, which is also described in that evidence. The CAPK, I don't know what this was in the 2 hour, it was like 6 words and totally irrelevant. Dissent. At the top, expert controls cannot turn the case. One, it is an unevidenced assertion. There is no negative card that supports this premise, so you cannot vote on it. Second, export controls don't impact other countries' ability to attain nuclear weapons because it can be empowered by other states. Even if the U.S. doesn't give them the bomb, then other countries could, or they could steal it from loose fissile material. Most of the countries their impacts are about have the technical capacity to produce it now through the acquisition of civilian nuclear energy, which is the one I see prolific internal link cards now. The dissent proper, there is no link. We do have evidence describing it. It was in the damn 1AC Hearn and Heller. The 2AC Hearn says that this dissent is factually not true. Here is the dissent's link thesis. Trump used national security to take away CBRs, so the plan that gives back CBRs has to overrule that. That is not true. The 2AC Hearn evidence is from the General Counsel of the Union for Foreign Service Officers and is describing their legal argument. He describes 2 key pieces of defense. One, the lawsuit is not that Trump has no authority to exempt on national security grounds, but that Trump exempted all of the Foreign Service Act in one fell swoop and that was illegal. Instead, it says that he has to do it by subdivision by subdivision. So the plan's lawsuit would not say Trump can never do national security. It would say when Trump did national security, he did it too haphazardly, but he is allowed to do it. That solves 100% of the link because it would not be a rebuke of Trump's claim. It would just be the process by which he did it was the wrong, it was illegal. Second, Trump has failed to prove that all FSOs have an actual national security function. What I see Heller evidence says that there is a quote inability of the administration to cite one instance in which national security has been harmed by the Foreign Service. It zeroes the argument that that Trump thinks it is. Trump says a lot of bullshit that is legally meaningless, so you should not just automatically defer to him because what he's done is factually illegal, and the courts say that to him all the time. Maxwell's argument that the national security is that the plan is about national security. This is wrong. It is a term of art. That the fact that the money sees solves impacts about global war does not disprove this. Now there is no internal link. The negative internal link evidence is about things broader than national security. The observer effect is just if the court says no to Trump, then he will be scared and self-restrained in other instances. But they've conceded that the court is already checking him on the unitary executive Article 2, firing federal officers, etc., which was Tracy Moynihan and Dvorak. That means that the internal link is inevitable. Yes, our cards are not about the deference doctrine or national security, but theirs aren't either. Even the two are citing a line from one card that says national security and other core executive functions, and not a single other card in the negative card doc for the internal link is going to be specific to the national security argument. Lastly is impact defense, and great power defense does apply. One, the plan solves it because it creates coherent diplomats. Don't strike this because the one arrow was answering to our impact defense. It means we can manage the fallout of tension. Second, great power defense does apply. Michigan is just lying about their card. It says major actors like Russia and China are checked now. Three, they misunderstood the one arrow argument about tariffs and export controls. And they explicitly connect to our argument about carve-outs, and the tariff authority export controls are strong in status quo, and so Congress will not challenge them in every instance because they know the value of them given the negative impact, which is that there's only a risk that the link and internal link are tiny, and prolif was never answered.
That dog is sad.
And then go with like AT diplomacy studies card as well.
Managed to fix your computer.
I spelled overly wrong, Steve. Could you fix that in a second? Yeah, could you grab those two, the diplomacy card and the AT card?
You're lefty.
Yeah.
You should flow left to right.
I do. I could never get behind the like right to left.
Lefty taught me to flow backward.
Yeah.
So I can't do it.
These pens that were great. I barely get any like.
You just end up falling.
I'm doing pretty
Do
okay.
an ankle. It's like an ankle.
Oh yeah, I do flow like diagonally.
Right.
Yeah, it's scientific. So yeah, my hands are very good.
That's good. And Hardy never ate a breakfast taco. He ate nuts and berries.
That's basically my diet as well.
You good?
And then you have their impact card.
Yeah.
Can you put that on the dissect so in case?
Sure.
over my computer to do the wiki on.
If you want to talk with you about contingencies for the next one.
Awesome.
Take for the camera too.
Yeah, I think we have a camera and microphone, so let's
Ooh.
not say anything too important
Okay.
about what we plan to do in future debates.
That's a good warning.
Yeah, we're gonna like hot mic ourselves into telling
Yeah.
the live stream to do it.
Finish up whatever that is.
I can also perhaps ask Yao to like mute the mic. Until
Yeah, comes back. I don't need to talk to you like right this second.
Okay.
Yeah, one second.
Copy closes it to.
Yeah, I'll take a double copy. Thank you. What do you want? Just a regular one. Open book or you started at the green?
Yeah.
Then I'll just get the laptop.
Do you want another copy?
No, thank you. Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah, I'll go.
Yeah, I just want you to. If you feel like you don't need that background, then ignore it. But it's been fluid. And then I care about you understanding that. But you can read this.
This one.
Yeah, that's sort of everything.
Yeah, let me.
Yeah. You can ask me, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
You get it?
I think so.
All right.
I don't really understand what this part has to do with it, or this last paragraph. Like, what is this?
It might be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. That's
Yeah,
kind of
it's
important.
the like this.
Yeah, and so if you thought that this was overkill, we could delete that line and the last line.
Yeah. I
You
just
know,
think
just-
that makes it a little more confusing. Like
Yeah,
we basically have two big things. It's like
Okay.
this is obvious and that's obvious,
Okay,
but this is like a little more
You're right, I'll just,
nitty gritty.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Though. I think it's easy to communicate and like.
got it. All right, I'll make that good. You're right about that.
Now, that's relevant
To both.
across. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna slack you a thought that I'd rather not say out loud. Given the
Yes,
complex
go
situations.
for it. You're good. appreciate it. I got
I'm done working on
NDT matter, so I gotta go. But good luck.
it.
Give me a couple.
So if you see you guys are working out, do you let them
You can
know?
holler him.
You don't, he doesn't have to like run back in here, but you time is 10 minutes, so.
I'll let him know.
Thank you.
Right, take it
Later we're taking off.
You're taking off?
Yeah.
All right. Good to see you.
You're right.
Good to see you again. It's good to see you legal debate.
Aha. Everybody here? Good, really good debate. It's a 2-1 for the negative from Michigan. Extremely close. I sat. There's definitely dissad here. I don't think the argument about Trump doing it piecemeal versus all at once really gets you a whole lot. Like, you still have to say he can't do it all at once. And that does not defer to his judgment about national security issues that says they're all the same. And frankly, as to foreign service officers, it's not all that far-fetched to me to think that they might all be national security, so much so that it seems like he could kind of say it. I really wish the 2N would say, if this is all the plan does, then Trump will proceed to one at a time reclassify all these people as not eligible for collective bargaining, and the plan won't do squat. Okay, I mean, they can't really make this argument, I don't think. But but you try, and they don't catch that. But I think that's a very dangerous argument to be making, as in addition to one that is not really availing you of much. I really thought that the best affirmative answer would be that we can do diplomacy without export controls, but we can't do export controls without diplomacy, because we can say we're not going to export these AI chips to China, but we export them to Korea and Taiwan and 14 countries in Europe, and diplomacy is the way we figure out who's in and who's out and how we keep them from re-exporting. Export controls are a big multinational effort by a lot of companies in a lot of countries all over the world. They take diplomacy, okay? And I think you could easily make inroads. That's an argument that's not done. I also think, though, that the case is not zero, that proliferation is not impossible and is very dangerous, especially non-nuclear proliferation like bioweapons and stuff. And I think it's likely that diplomacy can help in non-great power situations, and that the affirmative has some prolif advantage. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out which one of those was bigger, and I don't really have much feel for the answer, but the reason I voted affirmative was because you said no great power war, they conceded it, and the main impact that I understand of export controls is about China and great powers, not about restraining Pakistan from getting a nuclear weapon, which they managed to do without importing shit. Okay, and so I think the affirmative still wins pro-lift, that it's not great power necessarily, and the grant out of no great power wars seems to cut against the disad far more than it cuts against the affirmative advantage. Super close. I'll shut up.
Sure. I think the biggest place I differed with Dallas's analysis was the case stuff. I have the one card in the 2 and C. I find reasonable as well, but I have it. I explicitly have warrants about, where's my case page? Warrants about barriers of growth and like stockpile depth as being explicitly made in the block, and not answered in the 1AR. The 1AR tells me that they weren't there, and then makes arguments that proliferation would be bad if it occurred, but does not answer the it won't occur and the stockpiling stuff, which I think to me dramatically reduce the risk of any case impact external to the term-scale stuff in the DIFSAT. Analysis on the disadvantage, I went through and resolved it. The impact stuff, I think the AI safety stuff was more precise to me than the Great Power War stuff. I think that was present in a couple of places in the 2NR, and I think is external to the diplomacy question. That the way I understood the 1AR on the diplomacy stuff was like, it lets us negotiate and like deal with this stuff that happens when we lose tech hegemony and we lose tech ability and export these chips. I do not understand that this implicates the AI stuff as was articulated by the negative. And I think the other issue is that I think there's a significant risk of the link, even asking the question of what is the perimeter of the National Security Authority is a question that the link evidence is super good on, like, even asking this question, making changes at the perimeter is still letting the courts decide what is and isn't in the bounds, and that's bad. I took a long time thinking about how this applies in the context of the impact stuff. The impact to export controls seems less connected. I think Joanna, the 2AR is doing the better. Is bringing up very critical questions about what national security exemptions apply in the context of the export control stuff. I think there is a disconnection in the negative evidence set between like the foreign policy stuff and national security stuff. But I ultimately don't think that there is enough work being developed on thumpers to really exploit this issue. I think the threshold, the threshold, the impact evidence setting is like low, but I don't understand what exactly the thumpers do to clear that threshold. I think development of that more would have made me disadd close to zero, and we solve the impact that the disadd also triggers, not enough to get me. No external stuff, not a whole lot of external stuff. In some respects,
I'll start with the case. So I think that the app is best on the prolif part in terms of like behavioral motives and how diplomacy is a way to sort of like dissuade, foreign actors from wanting to be incentivized to acquire nuclear weapons. But they do have the Lenoska card, which is addressing capabilities, in terms of money, technology, and so forth. So, each side is winning an aspect of that, but their defense is addressing a different part of the prolif escalation. I do spend some time with this Kronig evidence against, you reading the Dinkelman card back at it, because I think that the card is even arguing that not just like status quo solves, but like the streamlining of the Foreign Service has improved the mission, because there's DEI hires and people that are ideologically inclined in ways that are not in lockstep of what's appropriate for the Foreign Service. So the purging of them is actually a good thing, and the status quo is good in that aspect. So your Dinkelman card's kind of saying, well, Kronig's too focused on the high importance of the Foreign Service people that are abroad talking to people. That's just the tip of the spear. It's the experts, that are back at home that also matter. But that's not addressing like the ideological drive or what's going on with those bloated extra experts. So I think their Kronig card is actually very good at making a case for like the existing restructuring of the Foreign Service is a good thing. I don't give too much weight to the DOS is doomed and fails because it was just kind of like a vague and met card, talking about kind of like some lingering many years bureaucratic aspects of the DOS. Okay, so now the DISAD. I think that the DISAD is strong on the link level because, even in the 1NC, it's, arguing that there's like categorically just zero basis on which the court should ever try to second guess what the president's take on some sort of national security need might be. So basically, let's just give blanket deference, which kind of cuts into this story that you have in the TOR, and of like, well, we're not really trying to constrain the president's power on doing things with the Foreign Service. You just shouldn't have done it all in one swoop. That maybe one by one could be adequate. And my read of the negative evidence is just, that the court should not even step into that hornet's nest. Now, what I think makes this a really interesting debate is, the affirmative identifying that each side seems to be reading cards just from lawyers, making like the legal case for why, according to the negative, we should just bow down to precedent, which is deference to the president. Versus the affirmative saying this is overreach. But I mean, first of all, the negative does have very specific links about federal labor management relations, and I also think the internal links play a role here because regardless of like the legal wrangling between one lawyer and another lawyer about who's legally correct, the fallout of this would be something that would be damaging in terms of like lower courts. Seeing what the federal courts do and throwing up more further landmines for the president. The president being bogged down in further legal battles where executive swiftness perhaps is best and necessary. Now, on the impact level in Great Power War, there was quite a lot that was read about like and argued by the negative about like tech supremacy and AI and how the rogue actors or whatever our adversaries having the AI advantage could actually like impede diplomacy. So I've got like a kind of turns case analysis that kind of weighs heavily for me.
Regarding the like AI safety impact part of the debate, I've always understood those impacts to also be downstream of no great power war or no great power competition. Like they read a card that is like Russia or other great powers won't try to challenge us. And the AI scenario is like they will challenge us in AI specifically. So I don't
think this is the case. I think it's like the way I was vibing with the AI safety sets off like Terminator flags in my brain, not Russia kills us all flags in my brain. That is what I was vibing on.
But China would only pursue AI, leadership vis-a-vis the U.S. in competition, in great power competition. No,
that is not what I was understanding out of this debate.
Because of our explanation, or because you thought they distinguished their impact, like.
Both. The FETYC stuff is like nobody wants to engage in war, but the AI safety stuff is like we need to follow on U.S. norms for how AI models are developed and trained and socialized. These do not seem thematically unified to me in the way that you want them to do in the context of the FETYC that's the one that's the I'm not parsing this into the same issue.
Yeah, I mean, he does say in the 2NR that unsafe AI will kill diplomacy.
Right. Yes, of course. Like I'm the terminal impact to AI safety is obviously different, but I suppose we cannot communicate that without the internal links like way before that. Like the reason that China makes evil AI is because they're trying to compete with the United States.
That level I was not getting at.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not.
I mean, great power war versus great power competition. I mean, the countries will still race with their technologies and seek parity, whether that crosses a threshold and then going to war is kind of like a different trigger threshold.
Right, but we're saying that it doesn't cause war. So like,
But
taking
the
rates-
act of them having the AI supremacy means they can meddle with diplomacy, is what I'm hearing from the negative.
but that's a turns case argument, not an
Yes.
impact argument.
Yeah, but it does turn the case that you do have to win the case or you lose the
No,
debate.
I'm not disputing that part.
The second question I had was, I struggled a little bit before the 2 to decide if it should be more focused on like no link. The plan is not a general statement on national security. Clearly, that did not land. The better angle would have been your internal link, like the or the what's the word that they use?
False causes.
Yeah, like your stuff is about like the executive will self-restraint in response to checks. There are checks now.
Yes. Yes.
Thumpers, like you've set the threshold on the floor, even if they're not all about national security. Like the executive be getting checked.
Yep. That's
Okay.
where I wanted you.
Yeah. The 2AC read a card on the curbing disad that was like Trump is getting wrecked in district courts and like losing all over the board. And then we obviously had the 2 on the like the disad Robert. Do we think that like the 1AR focusing more on like explaining why restrictions on Article 2, unitary executive, and getting
I
stopped
just
in
don't
district
think
courts?
that makes sense.
Say more, please.
I don't think unitary executive deference or the lack of deference to the unitary executive claims as to the Fed or something means much in a national security deference debate.
I agree it doesn't thump the link, which is, we can all agree about national security, but I understood the internal link to just be more broadly about when the executive perceives checks, like the observer effect. The card is like, litigation would trigger the observer effect. This happens, when the court draws policy lines. Like, it doesn't seem to be all that specific to national security.
This is where I was, and this is exactly where I was, and this is where I spent the most time thinking about it, thinking in this debate. And I think it would not have taken much to give me over the line on that one.
Okay, great. Yeah. Dallas and Armand, like, this is a 3-person panel, so
Sure,
what are
yeah,
your 2 thoughts on that angle instead? Also a no?
I don't know, because I'm thinking like the less legal roadblocks for the president, the better is the thesis of the negative. And you wouldn't necessarily zero, like thump as in zero the disad. You would demonstrate instances where there are some legal justifications by which people could challenge the president on things that affect national security. But why add fuel to the fire? Why have this? Why do the app and then do something that could amplify observer?
Yeah, that's a reasonable take. In that case, then, like, assuming that in the world where this is like a new disad and we like haven't done our like deference national security predictive uniqueness updates, like the pieces I have to work with are like thumpers about other executive power. The F is not a broad ruling on national security and like straight up impacty, like no AI evil race. So, like, what is the best package of arguments given what you assume
Well,
we would have?
one option,
Just all in
just
on
a
impacty?
possibility is sure lean more heavily on those thumpers, but understand that they won't necessarily zero the disad
Right.
for me.
But what's the like?
But then introduce a comparative of like a breakout advantage that you're cleanly winning versus a disad that's been rendered somewhat linear.
Better weighing of ProLif against AI war, better deployment of the great power war won't happen. I don't, AI safety, that is a complication that I'm not prepared to grapple with at the moment. But I think, this would be somewhat new, but I think the argument that export controls won't work without good diplomacy would be a good thing to say.
Okay, the last question I had or second to last, so, like, yes, this is a court case. We are reading cards from the union. They're reading cards from Trump's lawyers. Do you think any of you would have been persuaded by, like, indicts that are, like, they're reading cards from Trump's DOJ? These people's literal job is to defend everything that Trump says, but they're not making accurately. Like, we have a set of evidence. It's just, like, epistemology. Like, Trump is hiring people who are intentionally loyalists. That is kind of his whole shtick in the government right now. These people are not.
All lawyers are loyal
Yeah.
to their side in that
Yeah,
case.
I
They do their best.
You're reading the union. They're reading the people that want to fire the union. There's not a winning epistemology battle on that one.
Okay. The last question I had was sooner in the debate, outside of more thoughts on export controls and like the internal link between that and national security, just like off the dome from the heart, what more would you like to see in this 2AC against this dised, and where do I get the time for that? Like, I think the top two things in my mind are like, grab, say some thoughts on like national security not equal to export controls, terrorists probably dump export controls, Trump will find another way to do it. I could have just like said those three things. But what else, presuming we don't have like deep deference to set answers, that's all you want to say? Diplomacy. Yeah. Oh, and then the part two to that question was, where do I get the time for that?
A little less on cap K, a little less on midterms would be my vote.
I'm always going to thumbs up less time on the cap K. I understand panel.
Yep.
Midterms, I think you're fine there. It's tough to say cut lots of time there, but we'll cut some. Maybe you might get a trim thing there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing
Go ahead.
that you got to be more careful about is this argument that Trump can do them one at a time. That means nobody has any security. They will think, well, we're the next ones that will be determined one at a time not to be able to have a union. I think that's a very dangerous argument for you to be making, and you should steer away from that. I don't think that's getting you much against the disad, and I think it's really a dangerous place to go.
Understood.
Like the always answer is like 2AC need to be more efficient on case. I think your labels to their arguments could have been a little shorter and still comprehensible.
Okay.
That like saves you 10-15 seconds across all of the case
Can I
arguments.
ask a question? Where was this pro-lift defense read? Is this the top of the one in our?
It was the last card in the 2NC.
The
Well,
last
second
card
to
in the
last card. It was the
2NC.
second to last card in the 2NC. I said no proto Lanaska. I might have marked it near the end, and then I said no. I think I said no. It might have been the exact last one. But it was like second to last or last on the case.
Okay,
I had
yeah,
it
I got
below
it.
the no North Korea bioweapons card, and this might have been the one in ours, the no preventative war stuff. I think that was the first place the one in our letter was at, because the thing on it low above that.
Are these cards all about nuclear proliferation?
Lanoska's about nuclear, yes.
What?
Lanoska's about nukes, yes.
Yeah, so one thing you can say is we have a bioweapons proliferation advantage that they haven't answered.
Yeah, I just didn't hear it.
You know, I heard it, but I didn't quite completely understand exactly what the argument was. But it does seem like it was about nukes.
Dallas, can I ask some questions about
Yeah.
the decision? Okay, so you voted on like an external bio thing, not a nuclear war one? Or
An
did you vote-
external bio,
Did you vote on like other WMD prolif or like nuclear prolif?
well, both. I think your defense on prolif is not perfect.
Did you think they said non-nuclear prolif? So my understanding after the 1 AR was that they were only going
No, I don't think they said that.
Okay.
I didn't vote on bioweapons prolif. I don't think your nuclear prolif defense is airtight.
Okay, so you thought like nuclear prolif itself was still pretty big.
It's little, I think.
Okay. But you thought the D8 impact was way smaller because of no great power.
Not way smaller,
Just a little.
very close. But I thought great power war not happen concession. I didn't think hard enough because I didn't understand how AI safety wasn't a war. But if AI safety is not a great power war, then I didn't understand how that added to the impact there. But I thought most of the impact to the disad was great power wars, not little prolif wars, and that we can't stop little prolif with export controls. AI is not the key. I don't know. My just impression was the disad was more about great power wars.
So if the tuner had started with like export control stop road tech development and allows like AI norms, like chip development, etc., do you think AI
AI norms, safety would be really good, and export controls apply to proliferators effectively, which, I mean, I don't think AI is an example of that. I might be wrong. I guess maybe I am. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And then it seems like we're kind of mixed on like whether thumpers applied or not. Grants from you seem the biggest on like other thumpers.
Yeah,
I think
the distinction being made, so the card that gets you to export controls need authority, says the word like foreign policy authority, does not say national security authority. This is a distinction that the 2AR was like super great on. All of your link cards are about national security authority. I think there's a disconnect here that is being exploited by Michigan State.
Okay.
That was an issue to me.
Did you not think the 1NC one explicitly was about that? Did you think like we read block ones that were just like about foreign policy and that's where they got thumpers? Because
I'm looking at the card doc, so like the first page of the card doc.
Okay.
The top half is like tech is a big deal.
Did somebody
The
hit
bottom half
publish?
is foreign policy authority.
I'll do it.
Okay, sure. Okay, I guess that makes sense. I guess. Well, there are some thumpers that like maybe apply to that, but some don't. Like.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
Some don't.
okay.
But there was debating to be done on that.
Okay.
But that was the biggest. That was an opportunity that I for Michigan State that I don't think I think maybe finding the God card results.
Okay, that makes sense. The other one is, did you think, so I kind of thought the case was a little smaller from like DOS fails. Did you think it was like F quality? Like, should I just like access that much time and come to Pro with more?
I just like the Chrono card better than the DOS
Okay.
fails card.
Okay.
I didn't think about that part of the debate. I got to the impact defense, and that was the only case.
So I should have flipped and started with like Chrono Impact D and then got to DOS.
No, you were fine. You were fine. You were. The way it worked out today, it worked out today.
Okay, and then temperature check on the cap K. Okay, is that just like a structural thing? You're
Boy, oh boy, like the cap case seems to be talking about how like private people are like doing it in the private sector, and like this is like, here's how the government works. I do not understand how these things interact. And I let gut check very thumbs down on the framework E that you wanted that you are leaning on in this 2NC.
okay.
But that is just me limiting from the panel and I'm a nutshell.
I mean, I don't know to what extent you were invested in it. You said stuff on it. You could have maybe gone for it, I guess. I don't know what else to say. So.
Okay. I think that's it.
Yeah, why not? Midterms?
I didn't think there was a very big link.
You what?
I didn't think there was a very big link to midterms.
Well, there's no link to midterms. You have to say the government employees are a symbol for the private. Da, 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 da. You're right. That's a long shot, but it's more of a time threat, I think. I mean, you did good. He spent a lot of time on capitalism, so it worked out fine. But I think he shouldn't have spent that much time on cap because he knew you weren't going to go for it with this panel, I think. And so maybe try midterms. I don't know. I agree, though, the link is stupid. So that is an issue.
Thank you.
And I want to say, I've judged you folks, you all a bunch of times in the past. I love today. It was fun. It was grand. I love hearing you folks bring. I'm really disappointed that I have to report this, so I don't get to watch you folks.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Everybody was really good.
Steve, I'm going to stay here. So we're going to have to walk back all the way to the union. It's going to take us like 2 minutes to walk.